Chapter 1565. Another land whale slowly propped up its 8 short legs and left the landing tunnel. Then, it quickly moved away and disappeared into the horizon in the blink of an eye. Arbor's group of 4 walked forward. An old man who was in charge of directing the land whale was huffing and glaring at a skinny young man who was blocking his way. "Get out of here, stinky brat. You've annoyed me for an hour. I told you that you can't reduce the price. Why are you so long-winded? Big brother, please do me a favor. I don't have enough money for the journey. I have to rush back to the academy. Boo-hoo, if I can't make it back today, the students will all be starving. The students in the academy are probably starving to death. They haven't had anything to eat for 3 days. The skinny young man wiped the non-existent tears from the corners of his eyes pitifully and glanced at the old man from the corner of his eyes. Are you the purchasing master of the academy's cafeteria? Which academy are you from? The old man asked. I'm an instructor of the water spirit department from a top-tier academy outside Anka City. I'm not a purchasing master of the cafeteria. The skinny instructor looked at the old man awkwardly. The old man looked at him suspiciously as if he had never heard of the top-tier academy. If you want to go to Anka City, you'll need 2 hours and at least 200 spirit coins for the journey. This is the cheapest one. The skinny instructor of the water spirit department suddenly pounced on the old man and hugged his thigh. Big brother, I don't need a seat. Just give me a place to stand. I only have 5 spirit coins with me. Can you give me a ride? Get out. The old man punched the skinny young man almost immediately. Arbor. The strange thing was that the skinny instructor seemed to have heard of the so-called top-tier academy. Where had he heard of it before? Little friends, do you want to take a ride on our land whale? Let me tell you, our land whale is stable and fast, and it can avoid lightning effectively. Along the way, you can enjoy the beautiful scenery of the thunderous plain. There are only 10 seats left. If you miss it, you'll have to wait until tomorrow. Little friends, do you want to give it a try? Arbor took out a bulging money pouch and grabbed a handful of spirit coins from it. The old man's eyes suddenly lit up. He stretched out his hands to receive the coins, only to see that Arbor had counted 480 spirit coins for him one by one. Arbor then threw the rest of the coins back into the bag. The old man was speechless. He was so excited that he thought the rich girl in front of him would throw all the spirit coins at him. Miss Chiao, let us pay for the travel expenses. Bai Xia said with an embarrassed expression. The little girl had given them so many good things just now. They couldn't let her pay for the travel expenses anymore. Arbor waved his hand carelessly. It's fine. Then, he turned around and waved at the little boy who was leading the way. He took out 50 spirit coins and gave them to him. Take it and go back. Meng Mai opened his small mouth in shock. He wanted to say something but the young lady waved at him and said again, go back. Meng Mai hurriedly bowed and said, thank you, Mississippi. She left happily. Arbor kept the money pouch and turned to look at the old man. Where are you going? Please come this way. The old man looked at the young lady with a complicated expression. She actually gave a child who was leading the way 50 spirit coins as a reward. After coming back to his senses, the old man smiled and made an inviting gesture. He led the 4 people to the landing area. Chapter 1566. On the back of this super-large land whale, there was a circle made of special materials, and there were 30 chairs inside. Arbor's group of 4 went up the escalator beside the land whale and sat down in a row in 2s and 3s. They saw that the teacher from the top academy hugged the old man's thigh no matter what and kept begging, please, big brother. Give me a ride on the way, it's fine even if I don't have a seat. Get lost. The old man angrily wanted to shake off that teacher, but that guy was like a piece of plaster, sticking to his arm, and he couldn't shake him off. Arbor looked sideways and was slightly speechless. This tutor was so thick-skinned that he wanted to use 5 spirit coins to exchange for a ride with someone else. If this precedent was set, there would definitely be many thick-skinned people who would beg the old man to give them a ride. It was obvious that the old man would definitely not agree. Otherwise, how would he do his business in the future? "Little brother, I beg you to let me go." The old man helplessly pulled that teacher away and waved his hand. "The price of the land whale is set by the town guards. I also beg you, little brother, this is not something I can decide." What kind of joke was this? He finally took over such a lucrative job from the Shuntian prefecture's prefecture master. Of course, he couldn't mess things up. This price was not high at all. Apart from the cost of renting these land whales and feeding them, he still needed to hand over half of the income to the main prefecture. In the end, he calculated that there was not much income left. It was already good enough that he could have 10 or 20% of the income. Therefore, that damn teacher, when he said that he would give him a ride for 5 spirit coins, he wished he could slap him to death. "Big brother, please reconsider." The short teacher cried out pitifully. The old man couldn't bear it anymore and turned back to roar at him, "Get lost now in the same way you came in the first place. Put up lanterns and decorations and get lost." That full of energy word, "get lost," shocked the guests on the back of the land whale, and they all looked at the old man in shock. "I was miserable when I came in the first place. When I crossed the thunderous plain by myself, I was struck by lightning and was in a terrible state." The corners of Bai Xia's mouth twitched. She looked speechlessly at the shameless instructor. Was he really a teacher of some academy? However, he had never heard of a top-notch academy. "I've only heard of Shun Tian Prefecture's 4 great academies, Sun, Moon, Star, and Chen," Bai Xia said in a small voice. "I've never heard of any top academies." "I seem to have heard of it somewhere before," the little fellow muttered to himself. "Ah, is that so?" White Cloud was stunned. She turned to look at Arbor and asked, "Where have I heard of it?" "No." Arbor wanted to say, "I don't remember," but his eyes suddenly fell on the green pine and cypress jade bracelet on his left wrist. A thought suddenly flashed through his mind. Top Academy? A top-notch academy? Could it be the top academy that Murong Sun mentioned? Arbor turned to look at the rascally short teacher. He couldn't associate it with the top academy Murong Sun mentioned. Chapter 1567. Could it be the top-notch academy that Murong Sun mentioned in her letter? Arbor had a question mark on this academy in his mind. No matter how he looked at it, he felt like that instructor was a scoundrel. What kind of students could this kind of instructor teach? While he was pondering, a group of 7 people quickly arrived in front of the land whale under the lead of a fat auntie. The leader waved at the elderly person in charge and said, 7 seats, thank you. Bai Shuang whispered to Arbor, from the looks of it, they seem to have just come out of the lower star domain's passageway. Fuck. The other party's luck was just that good. They only came out of the passageway after they painstakingly dealt with the zombies and the arena. They did not need to fight to the death against those ugly zombies like they did. Bai Xia's gaze roamed over those 7 people. There were 5 men and 2 women in the group. 2 of them had outstanding looks, and the man who spoke was rather handsome. The other was a woman who was in the center like the moon surrounded by a myriad of stars. Her beautiful eyes were brimming with pride as she swept her gaze over everyone. Her expression was like that of a lofty queen patrolling the grounds. When her gaze landed on Arbor, the woman's gaze clearly turned sluggish, and her eyes seemed to be dyed with a trace of disbelief. There was actually such an exquisite and luxurious person in this world who was like a jade carving. The woman lamented in her heart, and her scrutinizing gaze roamed back and forth over Arbor's body. There was a faint trace of displeasure in her expression. Her skin was so delicate that it could be broken with a blow, and her facial features were peerlessly exquisite. She could not pick out any flaws at all. This caused a trace of discomfort to sweep through the woman's heart. In their star domain, she had always been known as the star domain's #1 beauty. She did not expect to meet a girl who was even more attractive than her on the first day she came to Shantian Prefecture. This caused her to be extremely displeased. The leader did not notice the woman's abnormal mood. At this time, he had already walked up to the elderly person and asked again in a clear voice, "Uncle, we need 7 seats." "Thank you." The old man awkwardly looked at the seat beside him, then turned to look at the 7 men and women. "Sorry, as you can see, there are only 6 seats left." 6. Then let them give up one. The one who spoke was a woman with an ordinary appearance. She glanced at Xiao Mu and the others who were sitting on the side as she spoke aloofly. Bai Xia saw their gazes fall on her and Arbor, and curled her lips in boredom. Baizha couldn't help but ask coldly, "Manager, didn't you say that we can leave as soon as all the seats are taken? What are you waiting for? Our time is very precious." The old man smiled apologetically. "We're about to leave. Everyone, please get ready. This young master. I only have 6 seats here. Look. Do you want to buy 6 tickets, or you can leave tomorrow?" "Tomorrow?" The #1 beauty of the star field screamed indignantly, "I don't want to stay in this damned place for even one more day." He had to leave immediately. "I want to go to the city. The closest city to here is Julu City." "Mister, we're heading there. I'll have to trouble you to arrange the seats. It doesn't matter if we have to pay a little more." The leader of the group was polite in both his words and the way he conducted himself. Chapter 1568. It was just that the few teammates behind him looked a bit arrogant. Especially that ordinary-looking girl. After looking around, she pointed at the short instructor from the top academy and said, "You, give up your seat. How about I give you double the price?" The short instructor hesitated for a second and then pretended to shake his head. "That won't do. I'm in a hurry to go back and cook for my students. They're starving to death." Arbor really wanted to ask this instructor, "Do you have a seat? How can you continue with such a coherent sentence?" The ordinary-looking girl took out a bulging money bag and casually threw it to the short instructor. "There are 500 spirit coins here, give up your seat to us." "Okay." The short instructor replied in an unusually loud voice and then waved his paw at the old man. "Big brother, then I'll go first. Actually, it's nothing to be struck by lightning all the way. It's healthier to be struck by lightning. It's pretty good." After the instructor finished speaking, he jumped off the land whale without looking back and really rushed towards the thunderous plain alone. Soon, everyone heard the sound of thunder not far away. It seemed that the instructor had activated the heavenly thunder mode after entering the thunderous plain. Arbor only felt that the heavenly thunder was rolling. That guy looked unreliable and greedy. It seemed that he was very different from the instructor from the top academy in her mind. The instructor from the top academy in the little girl's mind had a sage-like demeanor with one hand behind his back. He stood on the blazing lava mountain range and looked up at the night sky dotted with cold stars. But this cheating instructor in front of her seemed to be completely different from that lofty image. He was just a swindler. "Okay, we have 7 seats now." The ordinary-looking girl turned her head and roared at the old man who was stunned on the spot. "Arrange the seats, why are you standing there in a daze?" The old man was probably so angry that his lips were trembling. He calmed down and said in a low voice, "Miss, you just gave that instructor from the top academy a big bag of spirit coins, but it's completely useless. He's a swindler. He didn't buy a seat at all. You gave him money, but what can he do?" The ordinary-looking girl was dumbfounded. After a few seconds, she couldn't help but scold, "You damn old man, why didn't you say so earlier? You waited for him to leave before telling me this?" The old man also had an aggrieved expression. Just now, Miss moved extremely fast and threw a money bag to that person. It's too late for me to stop you. The old man still felt extremely aggrieved. Was there anything more ridiculous than this? That instructor from the top academy, how could he openly reach out and take the money bag? It really made people speechless. I don't care, you have a seat, the girl said unyieldingly. Tian Tian. The captain frowned slightly. You, give up your seat. The woman's. Then, she pointed at Arbor and said, you, give up your seat. Arbor's gaze sharpened. Before she could react, the 7-person team's leader quickly reached out and stopped the girl. He nodded at Arbor and said, I'm sorry, little girl. It's my team member who acted abruptly, I'm going to sleep. I'll make up for it tomorrow morning. Chapter 1569. If you know that your team members are unreliable, then you should take good care of them. Don't let them go around biting people. Bai Xia rolled her eyes in annoyance. The leader of the 7-man team, Su Hao, cupped his hands apologetically at Bai Xia and the others. He then turned to the ordinary-looking woman and said, Fourth princess, how about we set off together tomorrow? That's right, that's right. The old man heaved a sigh of relief and smiled. As long as you make an appointment, there will definitely be seats available tomorrow. No way. Fourth Princess Lu Tian said angrily. Why should I go tomorrow? It's not like I can't afford it. Bai Xia curled her lips and mocked softly, so you're a princess from some country. No wonder you're so extravagant and ostentatious. But she was the princess of Siyuan Star's Baizi country. In Shuntian Prefecture, there was no distinction between princess and prince. She was just a newcomer to Shuntian Prefecture. She still had to behave herself. What a joke. Princess Lu Tian was acting so arrogant and despotic even before she knew the situation, throwing money everywhere. If she met an expert with a bad temper, this Princess Lu Tian would suffer. Another beautiful woman frowned slightly and warned the princess in a soft voice, Lu Tian, you just squandered 500 spirit coins. The spirit coins we have left won't be enough for you to squander for a month. It was quite difficult to gather so many spirit coins in the lower star fields. Only this princess was doted on by the great king. That was why she was given so much for travel expenses. However, all in all, she only had 20 to 30,000 spirit coins. If she used them sparingly, she would be able to last until she entered the academy. If she squandered like this, no amount of money would be enough for her. Chen Hanyu. How dare you? Fourth Princess Lu Tian angrily rebuked and glared at the beautiful woman. What? You just left Hongyuan Star and your true colors are already revealed. You don't even address me as your highness anymore. When Chen Hanyu was on Hongyuan Star, she was often bullied by Fourth Princess Lu Tian. She didn't expect that Lu Tian would dare to rebuke her in front of so many people in Shuntian Prefecture. She was immediately enraged. It could be said that Lu Tian did not have any good feelings towards beautiful women. Right now, her ordinary face was filled with anger, causing Chen Hanyu to be slightly startled. She was just about to bow her head and admit defeat. An iron arm suddenly stretched out in front of Chen Hanyu, revealing a protector's stance. The person who came was a young man with a square face. When he saw Chen Hanyu's lowered eyes and aggrieved expression, he glared at Lu Tian and said, You better watch out, Lu Tian. Do you think this is still Hongyuan Star? Make sure that this is Shuntian Prefecture. Once we're here, we'll start from scratch. There's no such thing as a princess. Prince Consort, you. Lu Tian's eyes immediately turned red from anger. Bai Xia and the others were sitting at the side. Their eyelids twitched as they watched. It turned out that this square-faced young man was the prince consort of the fourth princess, Lu Tian. But why was the prince consort acting like he was protecting Chen Hanyu? The leader of the seven-man team, Su Hao, quickly stepped forward to smooth things over. All right, Su Bang, Chen Hanyu. We're all in the same team, so let's not quarrel. If there are no objections, we will go down first and leave the thunderous plain a day later. Chapter 1570. Chen Hanyu had a reluctant look on her face. Fourth Princess Lu Tian was even more furious. Seeing that this matter was going to continue, everyone could only wait for them here. In the seven-man team, a male member suddenly said, "Leader, why don't I stay here alone? You guys can go to the nearby city first." When the elder heard this, he hurriedly nodded and said, That's good. Su Hao hesitated for a moment. Will you be okay going alone? The male member smiled and shook his head. What problem can there be? Leader, don't worry. I'll just meet you guys at Julu City a day later. The princess's husband and Miss Chen in the team were so difficult to deal with. There was no need to make things difficult for the leader alone, the male member thought. Su Hao patted the male member's shoulder and left him a small bag of spirit coins. Then be careful. We'll wait for you at the city gate tomorrow. Okay. The elder hurriedly invited Su Hao and the rest to sit down. When he walked down from the land whale, he instructed everyone, just sit down later. Don't get up and look around. Otherwise, you'll be jolted down by the land whale. With that, he got off the land whale. It was the first time for most of the people here to ride such a large mount. There was a trace of curiosity on their faces and they were a little excited. Suddenly, the land whale jolted slightly. Everyone gasped and hurriedly grabbed onto the armchairs on both sides. The view in front of them slowly widened. The land whale began to draw a long tunnel and quickly ran towards the thunderous plain. Xiao Mu stuck out her small head and looked left and right. There was a vast plain in front of him. He couldn't see the end of it. This land whale is too stable. Bai Xia smiled and said, It's not bumpy at all. I heard that the thunderous plain is more than 100 miles long and there isn't a single flying beast in the sky. Of course. You'll know when you reach the center of the thunderous plain. There are crisscrossing lightning. If a flying beast goes there rashly, it will definitely be struck into pieces. The thunderous plains stretched as far as the eye could see. Everyone could only see a small half of the red sun on the distant horizon. Only a shallow outline could be seen. At this time, it was already dusk. At this speed, they would definitely reach Julu City before nightfall. We've entered the thunderous area. Everyone, be careful. A worker sitting cross-legged on the land whale's head reminded them faintly. Everyone only heard a loud rumbling sound. Sure enough, a bolt of lightning accompanied by purple-red lightning struck the thunderclap plains. Everyone felt that the lightning bolt was only a hair's breadth away from the land whale's head. They were all secretly shocked. The land whale, on the other hand, was like a lightning rod. It leaped forward and shuttled through the lightning bolts. Even if a small part of the lightning bolts landed on its body, it did not seem to feel anything due to its thick skin. Bai Xia broke out in a cold sweat. She only relaxed after watching it run for a while. She turned to look at the expressionless little stoic and said, This land whale should be a veteran of the thunderous plains, so there shouldn't be any problems. Xiao Mu nodded. Her large eyes curiously looked left and right as she watched the bolts of lightning pounce on the ground with frightening might. Why are there so many lightning bolts here? Hey, quickly look. Isn't there a person in front, catching up on yesterday's 2 chapters? Chapter 1571. Baijia's shout attracted everyone's attention. Suddenly, everyone was struck by lightning, charred on the outside and tender on the inside. At the far end of the thunderous plains horizon, a short man was racing with lightning. With a roll, he quickly dodged a bolt of lightning. Then, he suddenly jumped up. His movements were vigorous and brave. He rolled again, and rolled again. Roll, roll. 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 Arbor looked at this funny instructor and couldn't help but twitch his mouth. Bai Xia couldn't hold it anymore. She slapped her thigh and laughed. Oh my God! Am I seeing things? At this moment, more than half of the 30 passengers on the land whale were laughing too. You're not seeing things. Ji Feng held back his laughter and said, that instructor is being struck by lightning. Strictly speaking, that idiotic teacher from the water spirit faculty was pretty good. However, his appearance was extremely shocking. Look, he has a spiritual armor helmet on his head. Since he can generate spiritual armor, it means that this instructor's cultivation level is quite high. Yeah, I heard that only those who can sense spiritual essence at least at level 5 and above can generate partial spiritual armor. Arbor's gaze stopped on the funny instructor's head. He saw that he was wearing a blue, big helmet on his head. It wasn't really a helmet because its shape was too weird. It looked like a big wooden bowl that monks used to beg alms was upside down on his head. When the lightning struck, it went straight for the wooden bowl on his head. Crack! The lightning struck down together with the lightning. The short instructor nimbly rolled on the ground and ran forward with the wooden bowl's spiritual armor on his head. Crack! 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 Thunderclaps fell one after another. The short man dodged dozens of lightning bolts, but there were still a few that struck his head. Thus, when a bolt of lightning as thick as the mouth of a bull came crashing down with a boom, the spiritual armor that the short instructor was wearing was unfortunately smashed into pieces. Everyone saw that the hair on his head was sizzling and smoking. When he turned around, his face was charred black. He put one hand on his waist and pointed at the sky, cursing, "That's enough." Boom! The thunderous plane didn't care whether he was cursing or not. Another lightning bolt struck down. The short instructor pulled back his legs and rolled on the ground like a gourd, rolling to the front. Seeing this, Bai Xia's mouth twitched. I think this instructor rolled all the way across the thunderous plane. Xiao Mu looked at this unreliable water spirit faculty instructor from a top-notch academy and made a decision in her mind: she wouldn't search for this top-notch academy for the time being. She would wait for Situ Yi and the others to rendezvous in Julu City before making further plans. With such an unreliable instructor, he felt that this school wasn't that great. The land whale ran past the tutor steadily. A certain instructor who was being struck by lightning turned his head and saw land whale's huge body. He hurriedly tried to catch up to land whale. Hey, hey, hey! Young people, can you give me a hand? Hey! Oi! Lu Daijing ran very fast. Within a short moment, he had already disappeared from Ji Hao's side. The instructor felt his heart ache. He raised his hand and touched his chest. He said sadly, "Heavens, these young people don't know how to respect their teachers. How dare they treat me like this?" Seeing that another bolt of lightning was about to strike down, the instructor hurriedly ran forward. Chapter 1572. At dusk, the group arrived at the gate of Julu City. The city was huge. The walls were built with huge beige rocks. The city gate alone was hundreds of feet high. The people standing under the city gate looked very small. When Arbor and Bai Xia arrived at the gate of Julu City, they happened to run into a traffic control. A group of people lined up outside the city gate. There were 2 rows of energetic guards with long spears in their hands. They looked like they were waiting for someone important to pass through. Bai Xia couldn't help but pull on a passerby and ask softly, "Sister, can I ask you something? What's everyone doing here? Why are you all stopped at the gate? Look at how tired you are. You must have come from afar to enter the city." The middle-aged woman that Bai Xia called sister smiled at Bai Xia. "Actually, it's not like this usually. But today, I heard that the beautiful fairy from the Palace of Cold Blood is visiting. City Lord Hua will welcome them personally, so we can't pass for now. Everything will be fine after the beautiful fairy and her group pass by. Li Ren. A girl's voice came from behind Bai Xia. It was a round-faced girl who was sitting on the same land whale as them. She was about the same age as Arbor. Her cheeks were round and chubby, and her body was a little round. At this moment, the little girl was biting her finger and drooling with a strange expression. Xiao Mu turned around to look at her. Based on her nature of understanding foodies, she immediately understood that this round-faced little girl was not talking about some beauty, but chestnut kernel. Hey, make way, make way, make way. The short instructor, with his pitch-black face, squeezed his way through the crowd and finally managed to squeeze behind Xiao Mu and the others with great difficulty. Baizhi glanced at him and blocked him with his arm. Why are you squeezing? Hey, young man, have a better attitude. The short man glared at Baizhi angrily and looked around the city gate. Why did you stop all of them here? Why aren't you letting anyone in? No one cared about him. On the other hand, the fourth princess, Lu Tian, who had given him 500 spirit coins to buy a seat, was furious. She glared at the instructor and shouted, "How dare you show up in front of me?" The short tutor turned around to look at her. His face was dark. Hey, why wouldn't I dare to appear in front of you? Little girl, be more polite when you speak. You liar. Lu Tian was so angry that he wanted to rush over and beat him up. However, it was crowded at this moment. Her vigorous movement immediately affected many people around her. Some of the people who were squeezed so tightly that they couldn't breathe hurriedly shouted, "What are you doing? What are you doing? Don't push." The short mentor put his hands in front of him and made a defensive posture. When he saw that Lu Tian couldn't squeeze through, he immediately grinned and said, "Come here. Come here if you have the guts." How audacious. How dare you be so rude to your teacher? If someone like you were to enter our top academy, you would definitely be chased out within 3 days. Who the hell wants to enter your stupid academy? Lu Tian was furious. Instead of entering your unknown academy, why don't you work hard and try to enter one of the 4 great academies of the Sun Moon Star Union? Everyone was on Lu Tiantian's side. They nodded and looked at the short tutor with disdain. A bunch of frogs in a well. What do you know? Chapter 1573. Back then, when our top-notch academy rose to prominence, who knows where those 4 great academies of sun, moon, and stars that you speak of were? The short instructor harumphed. I'm telling you, don't be unconvinced. Our top-notch academy is extremely famous in the entire 6 prefectures continent. Not only Shuntian Prefecture, even the neighboring Ani Prefecture, Polan Prefecture, and so on all greatly admire our top-notch academy. Little children like you who just entered Shuntian Prefecture, I'll say this without boasting. It's best if you all come to our top-notch academy to study for half a year. Like those lousy academies of sun, moon, and stars, they only have a good reputation. In reality, they simply can't teach anything practical. They're all a bunch of gaudy sissies, what can they do? Everyone looked at each other in dismay. That's right, especially for little girls like you who are young and talented. You're the most suitable to come to our top-notch academy. The short instructor suddenly changed his target and pointed at Arbor and the round-faced foodie girl beside her. Do you want to give it a try and enroll at our academy? Our academy enrolls students at the end of July every year, and classes begin at the beginning of August. We have all 5 spiritual elements. No matter what you want to learn, there are outstanding instructors like me who will personally teach you one-on-one. Counting the time, there are only about 10 days left for you to prepare. How about it? Do you have the confidence to join our top-notch academy? The round-faced little girl dazedly glanced at the short instructor and shook her head. Never thought about it. Nah, how could you not think about it? It's already not bad for this little stoic-faced girl beside you. I can tell at a glance that she's a naturally intelligent person of few words. She's the most suitable to study at our academy. As he spoke, the short instructor pulled out a crumpled and tattered piece of paper from his pocket and stuffed it into the little stoic's hand without allowing her to object. A smile comparable to a blooming chrysanthemum on his pitch-black face. The test is on July 28th. As long as you pass our academy's test, you'll be able to smoothly join our top-notch academy. Little girl, I have high hopes for you. You can do it. Bai Xia was stupefied as she listened on the side. She didn't understand. It was clearly Lu Tian who wanted to settle scores with the short instructor in the beginning. How did it become the short instructor accepting Miss Chiao as a student and entering some top-notch academy in the end? Wasn't the jump a little too big? Arbor was expressionless. He lowered his head and looked at the crumpled paper in his hand. He reached out his small hand and slapped the paper on the short mentor's face. Not interested. Everyone was speechless. The short mentor looked at her with a pained expression and said, "Little fellow, think about it again. I am Zhou Danjin, an instructor of the water spirit faculty in a top academy." The brat was about to continue talking when he heard a cheer coming from the city gate. "Beautiful fairy is here." The loud cheers of the poor immediately interrupted the short man's words. Everyone pushed each other and squeezed forward curiously, wanting to see what this beautiful fairy from the Palace of Cold Blood looked like. A long-haired cow with snow-white hooves was pulling a chariot made of black gold towards the main gate of Jiulu City. The city gates opened, and the city lord, Hua Qingyu, personally came out to welcome them. His snow-white robe made him look as noble as an orchid tree. Chapter 1574. The carriage stopped at the city gate. Hua Qingyu smiled and walked forward. He cupped his hands and bowed. "The beautiful fairy from the Palace of Cold Blood has graced us with your presence." Hua Qingyu greets the beautiful fairy. There was no movement in the carriage for a moment. Suddenly, a fragrant wind blew in their faces. A snow-white figure shot out of the carriage like lightning. Her long robe fluttered across the roof of the carriage. Everyone focused their eyes and saw a woman in snow-white clothes. She was sitting cross-legged on the roof of the carriage. Her face was full of solemnity. Bai Xia and Arbor only felt that the beautiful fairy in front of them purposely made herself look ethereal. She was really pretentious. What kind of fairy is this? Even the city lord has to come out to welcome her. Bai Xia couldn't help but mutter softly. The middle-aged woman who spoke earlier suddenly rolled her eyes. What do you know? The wife of the current city lord of Shuntian Prefecture is the palace master of the Palace of Cold Blood. There are 5 fairies under the city lord's wife. This beautiful fairy is one of them. Her cultivation has reached level 7 spiritual master. She is very powerful. The Palace of Cold Blood comes once every 3 months. In the middle of the month, the city lord will order them to distribute cultivation resources. These things are related to the future of the city. Of course, they can't be careless. Among the resources, there are materials, spiritual medicine, cultivation methods, and everything else. If you have a good relationship with the fairies of the Palace of Cold Blood, you might be able to open a back door and get more benefits. No wonder City Lord Hua is acting like this. Bai Xia heard this and cast a curious look at the beautiful fairy. Her gaze moved back and forth on her face. However, the beautiful fairy suddenly glanced back in Bai Xia's direction. This cold glance made Bai Xia's heart skip a beat, and she couldn't help but be shocked. She stared at me so rudely. Where are the city guards? Go. Gouge her eyes out for this fairy. Bai Xia's eyes widened. She couldn't believe what she heard. What kind of fairy was this? How could she be so vicious? She just looked at her curiously and ordered the city guards to dig her eyes out. Who was she to not allow others to look at her? 2 afterimages came over. The 2 town guards looked cold and arrogant. They were about to subdue Baixiao. Sister. Baizhe was shocked and immediately attacked the 2 guards at the same time with Ji Feng. The 2 profound energies forced the mansion guard to take a few steps back. The crowd that was almost affected immediately let out a burst of screams. You're all courting death. The beautiful fairy leisurely sat on the roof of the carriage, her beautiful eyes shooting out a cold light. She waved her wide white sleeves, and 2 streams of yellow light shot out from them, heading straight for Baizhe and Ji Feng. Bang! A faint sound vibrated in the air. Just as the 2 immobilization talismans were about to attach themselves to Baizhe and Ji Feng, Xiaomu creased her brows and suddenly caught the 2 blue talismans between her fingers. In just a moment, the 2 blue talismans were crushed into powder in her hands and dissipated with the wind. Baizhe and Ji Feng, who were not affected by the body-securing talisman, managed to land a palm strike on the 2 town mansion guards, knocking them back a few steps. The beautiful fairy's eyes immediately narrowed. A pair of cold eyes, emitting a cold light, stared at Arbor and said word by word, "You dare to destroy my body-securing talisman? Do you know what the death penalty is?" Chapter 1575. She threatened me. Cut off her mouth, Arbor suddenly said coldly. A small white snake twisted its delicate body, and abruptly leaped up from Xiaomu's shoulder. In the blink of an eye, it transformed into a giant python and opened its mouth to bite at the beautiful fairy on top of the carriage's roof. The fairy was shocked. In order to avoid the sudden appearance of the giant snake, her body suddenly flipped backward and rolled down from the roof of the carriage. At this time, she couldn't care less about her image. She only felt that if she didn't avoid it quickly, the snake's huge mouth could tear her head off with a crack. Terrifying. Where did this giant python come from? Why did it suddenly appear at the city gate? The beautiful fairy didn't have time to think about it. After a crisp, crack sound, a ferocious snake head suddenly forced its way through the carriage she was sitting in. The entire carriage seemed to be wrapped around the snake's body. The giant snake slithered out of the carriage. Its eyes were extremely fierce, and it once again spat out a mouthful of black mist at the beautiful fairy. "Young lady, please show mercy." Hua Qingyu, who was watching from the side, was shocked and hurriedly scolded her. Unexpectedly, it would have been better if he hadn't scolded her. As soon as he scolded her, the little fellow's fierce eyes looked at him. When the 2 of them looked at each other, Hua Qingyu only felt his heart skip a beat. His whole body was stunned. This pair of ice bead-like eyes was really too cold. It made his whole body tremble involuntarily as if he had fallen into an ice cellar. "Eat her." Arbor's expression was cold as he issued a ruthless order. The small white snake roared and twisted its head, biting toward the beautiful fairy's head. Crack! The 4 walls of the carriage were bitten into pieces by the small white snake. The broken wood shavings were like powder flying in the air. The few long-haired cows were already scared out of their wits. All of them crouched on the ground, not daring to move at all. Ah! The beautiful fairy reacted and continuously stretched out the defensive talismans. However, these defensive talismans were like tofu. Under the black mist of the great void netherworld snake, they were broken inch by inch. "Miss, please be merciful." "That's enough." Hua Qingyu braced himself. He tapped the ground with the tip of his foot and suddenly flew towards the beautiful fairy. Arbor's eyes suddenly turned cold. In the blink of an eye, 5 blue talismans appeared in his hand. 5 fire talismans were thrown at Hua Qingyu at the same time. From the moment the talisman was activated to the moment the fire spirit exploded, the entire city gate was illuminated by a series of flames. Almost everyone was stunned. Boom! The fire spirit talisman blasted a hole in the city gate. Rubble fell from the sky, and Hua Qingyu's expression changed. You! Arbor frowned. Suddenly, he took out 5 fire talismans and threw them all down. Boom! 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 Explosions filled the entire city gate. The overflowing power of the fire talisman pushed down the lawn in front of the door, revealing the bare soil inside. The onlookers all scowled miserably and retreated one after another, fearing that they would be implicated. Fortunately, the fire spirit talisman only attacked Hua Qingyu. In order to prevent Hua Qingyu from getting close to the beautiful fairy to help, Arbor threw out 10 fire spirit talismans. Seeing Hua Qingyu's expression change slightly, he still didn't give up and flew towards the beautiful fairy. Arbor's eyes sharpened. He suddenly took out a handful of 50 fire spirit talismans. Chapter 1576. Hua Qingyu's eyelids kept twitching, and his heart also thumped non-stop. It couldn't be. Right? The 50 fire spirit talismans simultaneously flew up and circled around the city gate before flying toward Hua Qingyu. Hua Qingyu's eyebrows could almost squash a fly to death, and he couldn't help but roar, "Don't, don't. Please stop, my great aunt." Boom 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 boom. Everyone was stupefied. The violent and explosive sound rapidly attracted all the cultivators in the city. They all rushed towards the city gate in unison. Everyone had a bad premonition in their hearts. Zombies were attacking the city. Zombies were attacking the city. Cough cough cough, cough. Hua Qingyu reached out to brush away the thick smoke in front of him. His face went from shock to numbness, and now calmness. A little girl from the lower star field who looked like she was only 14 or 15 years old was so extravagant. She casually threw out a handful of fire spirit talismans, and her net worth could easily surpass that of a city lord like him. How could he endure this? The little stoic glanced coldly at City Lord Hua and suddenly raised her hand. Just as City Lord Hua's eyelids twitched wildly, she abruptly fished out a large handful of fire spirit talismans. City Lord Hua glanced over, and he basically couldn't count how many talismans there were. Don't move. City Lord Hua suddenly screamed with a black face. Calm down, my great aunt, calm down. I won't move, and you also won't move if I don't move. City Lord Hua's originally handsome face was blackened by the smoke emitted from the explosion of the fire spirit talismans in front of him. At the same time, without City Lord Hua's obstruction and help, the little white snake's tail suddenly coiled around the beautiful fairy. Without a second word, it slapped her face down onto the ground. Hua Qingyu only felt his teeth ache and balls ache. When he saw the large snake coiling the beautiful fairy up from the shallow pit, he hastily glanced at her and then silently mourned for her in his heart. It was too tragic. Her face was practically flattened by the large snake's slap. Bleeding from the forehead, nose, and mouth was no longer a big deal. The most important thing was that the beautiful fairy's nose was probably crooked, and the bridge of her nose was slanted to one side. His mouth was also completely broken, and there were many broken teeth in his mouth falling to the ground. Bai Xia, who was standing at the side, was also scared silly. She looked at the scene in front of her in a daze and secretly swallowed her saliva. Then, she swallowed again. She stole a glance at Miss Chiao and pursed her lips. Then, she shifted her gaze to the extremely miserable beautiful fairy. The beautiful fairy, who had arrogantly wanted to dig out her eyes just a moment ago, was now like a dead fish on the verge of death. The short instructor, Zhou Danjin, suddenly slapped his thigh and shouted joyfully, "Amazing! This student, may I know your name? Our top academy welcomes you with open arms." This mentor felt like he was from some evil cult, and he was trying to recruit people into his cult. "I said I'm not interested," Arbor said coldly. It's fine. Even if you're not interested, you can still cultivate your interest." No matter if it's towards people, things, or the academy, if you're not interested in the beginning, it doesn't mean that you won't be interested in the future. Xiaomu completely ignored this person's nonsensical rambling and directly turned to walk towards the city gate. At this moment, because of the fire talisman, the city gate was filled with burning bonfires. When walking, one had to be extra careful. Chapter 1577. However, these talisman fires were completely useless against her. Walking through the bonfire, Arbor strode forward and headed into the city with a cold expression. Just as the city guards were about to reach out to stop her, they heard Hua Qingyu shout from behind, "Let her go, let her go, let her go. Hey, make way, make way, make way." Instructor Zhou Danjin chuckled and followed Arbor into the city. What a joke. If they didn't leave now, when would they? If they entered the city alone later, wouldn't they have to pay a spirit coin entrance fee? Sister, let's go quickly too. Baizhi hastily tugged at Bai Xia, and the two siblings, along with Ji Feng, also hastily followed. Zhou Danjin stretched as soon as he entered the city, and his dark face was covered in a joyful smile. Waha, he really made a killing on this trip. Not only did he buy food at the small market outside the Thunderclap Plain that was nearly half the price of the food in Anka City, but he didn't even spend a single spirit coin on the round trip, earning 500 spirit coins for free. These 500 spirit coins were finally enough for the academy to spend for a while. This was a windfall. If the vice president knew that he was so capable, he would definitely praise him greatly. Zhou Danjin grinned at the thought of this happy occasion. When he looked up, he saw that the little girl's figure was already far away. He hastily chased after her and stuck to the little stoic like a plaster, saying, "Hey, stoic-faced little miss, let's discuss something. I see that you're also new to Shantian Prefecture. You definitely aren't familiar with this place. How about this, you can study at our top-notch academy for half a year. By then, you'll already be familiar with Shantian Prefecture. Hey, little stoic, hey." Before Zhou Danjin could finish speaking, he saw a green vine shoot out of the little girl's hand and wrap around the roof with a whoosh. With a slight push of her wrist, her body lightened, and she immediately rose from the ground, pulling the green vine to the roof. After 2 leaps, she had completely disappeared. Miss Chiao. Bai Xia chased after her but saw that her figure had already disappeared. She involuntarily stomped her feet in frustration and turned to glare at Zhou Danjin. "It's all your fault, you scared her away. I originally planned to properly entertain Miss Chiao after entering the city. The little stoic's surname is Chiao." Zhou Danjin rubbed his black chin and rolled his eyes. "Aren't you guys on the same side? I can't be bothered with you." Bai Xia angrily rolled her eyes at him, and called her brother and fiancé to leave. "Young people nowadays all have such bad tempers," Zhou Danjin muttered. He carefully glanced in the direction the little stoic disappeared in and cracked a smile. "I have a feeling that we will meet again in the future." Currently, in the Longevity Palace of the Mo Kingdom on Sikong Planet, Feng Gu happily ran in with a potted jasper begonia in full bloom. "Empress Dowager, it's a joyous occasion. Look, this jasper begonia has come to life. The people from the Eastern Palace brought it over. They said that before the Crown Princess left, she told the gardener to take care of it for a few more days and send it to the Empress Dowager when the flowers are ready. Look, the Crown Prince Consort has people take care of it so well. She can even save the dying jasper begonia. The Crown Princess is truly resourceful." The Empress Dowager nodded with a smile and reached out to gently stroke the green leaves of the jasper begonia. She said with a gratified expression, "The little Crown Princess is telling Aijia that there is hope in life and that one cannot easily give up." Chapter 1578. She didn't know when senior brother Situ and the rest would arrive at Julu City. Xiaomu sat inside a restaurant called Joy Pavilion and ordered a single meal, a bowl of egg noodles, a meat bun, and a bowl of egg floss and vegetable soup. Just this bit of food cost her 5 spirit coins. It's really expensive. However, she didn't feel the pinch of spending other people's money. She could just spend it. 300,000 spirit coins was enough for her to spend for a while. It was said that the expenses in this city were very high, and there was a monthly poll tax. It didn't mean that one could sit back and relax after paying 1 spirit coin to enter the city. At the beginning of the month, one would have to go to Babu Plaza and pay for the residence fee. Otherwise, if it was found that one's residence permit had expired, one could be punished to the point of bankruptcy or be expelled from the city, never to enter Julu city again. The residence fee was 1 spirit coin per month, and one wouldn't be refunded if one didn't stay for a month. When Arbor came in, she didn't pay any spirit coins, so she naturally didn't have a residence permit or anything like that. However, she would only stay in the city for a few days, so there shouldn't be any problems. She just had to wait for senior brother Situ and the rest to arrive before discussing where to go. Ding ding. The wind chimes at the entrance of Joy Pavilion rang, and the crisp sound rippled in the wind. Xiaomu had just picked up some noodles with her chopsticks, but before she could put it into her mouth, she saw someone jogging cheerfully to her side and patting her back with their small paws. "Hey, it's you." Xiaomu turned her head to look and saw a small round face appear in front of her. She had a round face and round eyes. The little girl was about the same age as her, but her eyes were fixed on the noodles in her bowl. She smacked her lips subconsciously. Arbor's mouth twitched. She recognized that this child was the round-faced little girl who rode the land whale with her. "Shopkeeper, another bowl of egg noodles." "Okay. Sit down and eat together." Arbor pointed to a seat at the side. "Ah. No need, no need. I spent 3 months' worth of food on the land whale. I don't have any money to eat for the next 3 months. Arbor's small hand that was holding the chopsticks paused, and he said expressionlessly, "I'll treat you. Sit down." "How can I accept that? How about this? You finish the noodles, and I'll drink the rest of your soup." As the little girl spoke, she saw a snake's head almost buried in the bowl of vegetable soup. Hearing her words, the snake raised its head slightly and glanced at her with its big, watery eyes. Then, it quickly lowered its head and used its small, wriggling body to wrap around its soup bowl, sucking all the soup into its mouth. Arbor. The round-faced girl laughed awkwardly and said, "Ha, ha, your little white snake is so cute." What the hell? A cold-blooded snake actually knew how to drink soup. Then, she seemed to have thought of something, and her little face instantly froze. What cute little white snake? Previously at the city gate, the giant snake had slapped the beautiful fairy into a flat face with its tail. She had seen it with her own eyes. How is she cute? She's not cute at all. She's even a little cruel. "Miss, a bowl of egg noodles is here. It's 3 spirit coins. Miss, please pay first." The shopkeeper was all smiles as he personally ran over to bring the bowl of noodles over. "What? A bowl of egg noodles actually costs 3 spirit coins. Why don't you go rob a bank?" The shopkeeper's face immediately stiffened. "Miss, the store clearly states the price." Chapter 1579. As she spoke, she raised her hand and pointed at the signboard in front of them. It was clearly written on the signboard. A bowl of egg noodles cost 3 spirit coins, a meat bun cost 1 spirit coin, and a bowl of vegetable soup cost 1 spirit coin. If one wanted to eat pure meat noodles, it would cost 5 spirit coins per bowl. "Wow, your shop is so expensive." The round-faced girl could not help but exclaim. "Shopkeeper, take the money." Miss Chow expressionlessly counted 3 spirit coins and gave it to him, sending him away angrily. "Eat. Arbor picked up the bowl of noodles again and started eating. The round-faced girl swallowed a mouthful of saliva. In the end, she could not resist the temptation of the egg noodles. She picked up the bowl with both hands and started eating. It's so delicious. Hot soup, hot noodles, and freshly fried eggs. It's flavorful and can fill my stomach. Woo. Arbor almost choked on the noodles. She looked up at the round-faced girl and twitched her mouth. Don't cry. The round-faced girl looked at her with tears in her eyes. Good. Arbor, she felt like she was looking at Jolin. What was going on? Could it be that all foodies were the same? Little big sister, I am Qi Xian. What about you? Arbor. Big sister Qiao, thank you for your hospitality. Qi Xian immediately entered her familiar mode. Out of a foodie's instinct, she ate the last piece of vegetable and finished the bowl of noodle soup. Arbor. No, she had to keep a straight face. Why did she feel like laughing? After eating, Qi Xian rubbed her round belly and let out a long sigh of satisfaction. I'm finally full. Do you want some buns? Arbor pointed at a meat bun at the side. You're not eating. Qi Xuan's eyes lit up. Arbor picked up some noodles with her chopsticks and put it into her mouth. I think I'm full after a bowl of noodles. Then I won't stand on ceremony. Qi Xuan's little paw was just about to reach for the bun when the little white snake curled its tail and rolled the bun over. The little snake's entire body coiled around the bun. It lowered its little head and started eating the meat bun. Arbor. Qi Xuan's eyes widened. You. Qi Xian pointed at the white snake and said, you, 3 times in a row. Then, she turned to look at Arbor with a strange expression and said, this snake of yours really can eat anything. Have you ever seen a snake eating a meat bun? The scene in front of him was simply inexplicably strange. Oh, just treat it as a human. Arbor said indifferently. He took out the teapot and poured himself a cup of water. He also poured another cup for Qi Xian and the little snake. If you're not full, I'll order 2 more buns for you. No need. Qi Xian hurriedly waved her small hands and said, I'm full. You were the one who said that I didn't want to eat the buns. I was afraid that it would go to waste. Arbor coughed lightly and took 2 sips of water from his teacup. What are your plans for the future? I originally wanted to enroll in the Sunlight Academy. Registration for the Sunlight Academy was at the end of July, and enrollment was at the beginning of August. I thought that since everyone is new here, they would usually find an academy to stay in. Qi Xian couldn't help but sniffle when she said this. But I didn't expect the Sunlight Academy to be so fraudulent. Just the enrollment fee alone is 10 spirit coins, and it still doesn't guarantee admission. Also, after enrolling, you still have to pay 100 spirit coins for a semester. Where do I have the money? Chapter 1580. Moreover, I heard that the Sunlight Academy's examination is very strict. Even I might not be able to get in. Why waste the registration fee? Qi Xian lowered her head. I've always heard you guys talk about the 4 great academies of sun, moon, and stars. What exactly are they? You don't know. Sun, moon, and stars are the 4 biggest academies in Shantian Prefecture. The number of students they recruit every year is extremely limited. Everyone fights to get in. I heard that they have their own style of teaching. After entering the academy, within a year, almost everyone can open their spirit meridians and comprehend one of the 5 spirits. Oh. What do they teach? They teach everyone to comprehend the power of the 5 spirits. Qi Xian looked at Arbor strangely. When we were in the lower star area, we couldn't comprehend the 5 spirits at all. Our starting point is already much lower than people of the same age in the 6 prefectures. After coming here, if we can't comprehend one of the 5 spirits within a year, we will be forcefully sent back. Ah! Arbor was stunned. Then I saw the entrance of Shuntian Prefecture and the small market near the thunderous plain. There are also many ordinary people. Could it be that they can send all these ordinary people back to the lower star area? Of course not. I'm talking about people like us who were summoned by the heavenly Tao and went through the stairway to heaven to come to Shuntian Prefecture from the lower star area. If we were the natives of Shuntian Prefecture, we wouldn't have such worries. Isn't it very unfair? Qi Xianxian puffed up her cheeks and said indignantly. I also think it's very unfair. But this is the way of the world. Other people's starting point is higher than ours. Like Shuntian Prefecture, some of them can open their spirit meridians at birth and absorb the spirit qi of heaven and earth by themselves. And in our lower star area, there is almost no spirit qi of heaven and earth. If you can find a spiritual land here, it will be of great help to your cultivation. Oh. Arbor nodded. No wonder they wanted to go to the academy to study. It was to systematically learn how to open their spirit meridians and comprehend the power of the 5 spirits. However, none of this seemed to be important to her. If I can open my spirit meridians within a year and comprehend one of the spirit essences, that would be great. Qi Xianxian raised her head and let her imagination run wild. At the side, the little white snake had finished eating half of the meat bun. It turned its head and glanced at her, giving her a look of disdain. Nothing. Chase. Please. Within a year, he only wanted to open his spiritual meridians and comprehend one of the 5 spirits. Just like his little master, she was so ambitious. He would definitely look for a spiritual land and break through to become a level 7 spirit master. The little white snake's bragging was about to reach the heavens. Luckily, he didn't say it out loud. Otherwise, Qi Xianxian would have fainted from shock. Oh. Qi Xianxian. Strange, why do I suddenly feel like I can't continue the conversation? Sister Qiao. Where are you going? Which academy are you going to? I plan to wait for my senior brothers and the others. Qi Xuanxuan's small face immediately fell. You have companions. I'm the only one from our star field. So, I can't even find a companion. She sighed, her eyes filled with confusion. This was a feeling of uncertainty about her future. Why don't we wait for my senior brothers and the others to come and take the exam for that Sunlight Academy? Okay. Chapter 1581. Qi Xuanxuan's face immediately lit up, and she looked at Arbor with sparkling eyes. She clung onto her arm as if they were close friends and nodded her head repeatedly. Sister Qiao, you're the best. I don't have to wander around by myself anymore. Qi Xianxian tilted her head with a smile. Wander around, that was an exaggeration. Arbor pulled her hand away and coughed lightly. He pulled a long face and said, I'm 15 years old and was born on the 20th of March. What about you? I'm also 15 years old and was born in February. Then don't call me sister anymore. Okay. I'll call you Xiao Qiao, and you can call me Xianxian. How's that? Oh, just call me Jojo. Xiao Qiao didn't sound very pleasing to the ears. Okay. You're Jojo, and I'm Xianxian. Okay, that's even better. This girl was so happy that she looked like she was flying just because of a title. It was truly hilarious. Arbor pursed his lips and tried his best to keep a straight face. He said solemnly, let's stay at Joy Pavilion tonight. Huh? Stay here. How much does that cost? Shopkeeper, we'll stay here for one night. Okay. Miss, our store is honest with all customers. We only charge 20 spirit coins for one night. What? Before Qi Xianxian could say anything, the shopkeeper tilted his head and pointed at the price tag on the opposite side. Honest with all customers. The price is clearly stated. Then, is tomorrow's breakfast included? Of course not. The shopkeeper turned his head and bared his teeth as he shouted. He stared at Qi Xianxian and Qi Xianxian. Fuck, you're dreaming. Tomorrow's breakfast is included? Why don't you say that you'll pay for tomorrow's lunch as well? Arbor took out a money pouch and counted 20 spirit coins for the shopkeeper. He also gave him 2 extra spirit coins. Prepare some hot water. All right. The shopkeeper received the money and answered in a particularly loud voice. Ah, this old man liked little girls like the stoic face. They didn't talk much, took money quickly, were nimble, and had a straightforward personality, right? Qi Xianxian rolled her eyes and exchanged glances with the shopkeeper. Both of them snorted in unison. This shopkeeper is really shady. All right, we'll just stay for one night. My senior marshal brother and the others will probably arrive tomorrow. That's great. We can go to the Sunlight Academy to take the test before the 25th. Arbor nodded her little head and reached out her little hand to let the little white snake wrap around her wrist. The little white snake was like a piece of warm jade. Its body was warm. When it was still wrapped around his wrist, it looked like a bracelet. Shopkeeper, on my way here, I saw several talisman shops in your city. Is business good? Of course. Miss, there's something you don't know. An ordinary safety talisman in a talisman shop can be sold for 50 spirit coins. Peace charm? Arbor was slightly startled. Someone bought it? Io, little girl, you're new here, so you don't know. These days, in our Shantian prefecture, there are only those who complain that talismans are sold too little. There's never been a saying that no one buys them. The peace charm and body securing talisman are selling very well. Oh. Arbor nodded slightly. The peace charm can seek luck and avoid misfortune. Apart from that, it doesn't seem to have any other special uses. Io, that peace charm is especially effective against ghosts. As long as you wear a middle-grade yellow peace charm, ghosts won't be able to approach you for 24 hours. Chapter 1582. Ghost Spirits. Arbor was taken aback. Ghost spirits can be seen everywhere here. On their Seekong planet, things like ghost spirits seem to be rare. The little monk once said that ghost spirits were formed from a wisp of resentment between heaven and earth. They accumulated and didn't disperse, and as ghost spirits, they possessed the power of evil. On Seekong planet, other than that time when she returned to Kwoto village and the little monk said that there were ghost spirits in the village, she had never seen ghost spirits before. Normally, didn't they all turn into zombies after turning into zombies? However, regardless of whether it was zombies or ghost spirits, our dear Xiao Mu didn't like them. They were dirty and definitely very ugly. That's right, that's right. A while ago, the eldest miss of landlord Li's family in the eastern part of the city was possessed by the kind of ghost spirit you mentioned. Oh my, you don't know. That shopkeeper was like a chatterbox and couldn't stop once he started talking. Landlord Li's eldest miss started combing her hair in front of the mirror in the middle of the night and even kept giggling. That freaking scene is what you call horrifying. Oh. Qi Xianxian, who was currently listening to the ghost story with her arms crossed in horror, suddenly laughed involuntarily. Turning around to look at the little stoic's cold and desolate face, Qi Xianxian couldn't help but chuckle. Shopkeeper, it's useless. Our Jojo won't be frightened by your ghost story. The shopkeeper pursed his lips disinterestedly. Who's telling you stories? I'm telling you the truth. Later on, Landlord Li went to invite an extremely renowned talisman master in the city. The shopkeeper slapped his thigh and gushed, the master fought with that ghost spirit for 3 days and 2 nights. In the end, he bought an immobilization talisman and immobilized it. When the shopkeeper said this, his finger suddenly aimed at Qi Xianxian. Qi Xianxian pursed her lips and slapped his finger away. Then he subdued the ghost spirit. Of course not. The shopkeeper shook his head and said, at that time, the situation was extremely perilous. Ah! That ghost spirit suddenly opened its bloody mouth and bit down at the talisman master. So it turns out that the talisman wasn't powerful enough and couldn't immobilize that powerful ghost spirit. That's an intermediate body securing talisman, it can't even stop a ghost spirit. Alright, alright. The two of them nodded repeatedly. Qi Xianxian urged from the side, Elder, can't you make it short? The shopkeeper slapped his thigh again. The simulated talisman master shouted angrily. That talisman master threw out another two body securing talismans and shouted, freeze for me. This time, it's finally stabilized. Arbor's mouth twitched. This shopkeeper was very neurotic, as if he had personally witnessed a fierce battle between a talisman master and a ghost spirit. Yet, he was still able to describe it in such a vivid manner. In the end, that talisman master threw out an extremely powerful attack talisman and directly killed that ghost spirit. Let it disappear from the world. Immeasurable justice will prevail. After the shopkeeper finished reciting, he looked up and saw a circle of people standing around him. Each of them was listening with great interest. Then, their faces were filled with admiration as they clapped. Arbor was speechless as he looked at the sky. He stood up and pulled Qi Xianxian towards the stairs. With an indifferent expression, he said, Shopkeeper, if this restaurant can't continue operating in the future, you can still set up a street stall and tell stories. Ha ha ha. Qi Xianxian laughed loudly. Hey, do you believe that guy's words? As if I would believe him. Arbor shook his head and said, however, what he said about the ghost spirit being immobilized by the body securing talisman is probably true. Chapter 1583. Talisman practitioners are truly amazing. Only their attacks are effective not only on humans, but also on ghosts. Arbor shrugged. The two of them returned to their room together and soaked in a hot bath before heading to bed early to rest. Arbor had a beautiful dream. She dreamed that Mo Lien was standing under an elm tree in the courtyard, gazing at her with a smile and extending his slender hand toward her. He wants a hug. Arbor's eyes brightened, and she immediately skipped over and threw herself into his embrace. Her small head burrowed into his chest, and she looked up at him with an eager expression. Lien. Following her call, Mo Lien's figure dissipated like a shattered star, causing her to throw herself at empty air. When she opened her eyes and woke up, she rolled off the bed. She was still hugging a stiff sandalwood pillow, causing her small stomach to hurt a bit. Pfft, a light chuckle came from the bed. Arbor turned her head and saw Qi Xianxian sitting there with her legs bent. Her long hair hung loosely, and her large eyes curved into crescents as she looked at her with a smile. Io, your sleeping posture is really terrible. Tonight, you sleep inside and I'll sleep outside, so that you won't roll off the bed again. Arbor stood up expressionlessly with an, I don't know what you're talking about, expression on her face. She calmly threw the pillow on the bed and got up to wash up. Qi Xianxian laughed out loud. She discovered that when this little stoic encountered something she didn't want to face, she would always use an expressionless face to bluff her way out. A classic stubborn duck who refused to admit her mistake. She hopped off the bed and cheerfully ran to her side, elbowing her arm. Hey, who's Lien? The little fellow, who was wiping her face, paused and then expressionlessly replied, hubby. What? Qi Xianxian was stunned. You're married. The little fellow nodded vigorously. Qi Xianxian was incredulous. Hey, we mystic cultivators have very long lifespans. Unlike them normal humans who have to hastily find someone to marry when they reach 15 years old. Hey, why are you doing this? Arbor turned his head to look at her. After all the selections, the ones left are all old men. She married early and chose well. My husband is very outstanding. He is the most outstanding person in this world. Qi Xuanxuan's eyes widened again. You don't look like someone who needs to rely on men. Arbor's little face was stoic. He turned to look at her and punched his chest with his little hand. Appearance. What you see of my strength is just a facade. My heart is actually very fragile. Qi Xianxian almost slipped and fell to the ground. A person who easily opened her mouth and told the little white snake to take the beautiful fairy's life, was her heart weak? What kind of joke was this? Is your husband really as good as you say? Yes. He's the kind of person who attracts bees and butterflies when he walks on the street. He's the kind of person who makes a lot of strange women look at me. Qi Xuanxuan's jaw almost dropped. Why do I have to look at you? Shouldn't they be looking at your husband? How would I know? The little stoic said coldly, it's simply boring to death. I always ask them what they're looking at, but no one pays any attention to me. Qi Xianxian, that I really pity your husband. I'm guessing that your husband's path is definitely not easy. Jojo, what are we doing out so early in the morning? Are we going to wait for your senior brother at the city gate? Chapter 1584. Qi Xianxian hurriedly changed the topic. She felt that if she continued to chat, her heart would be pierced by 10,000 arrows. It was very painful. No, let's go take a look at a talisman shop. The two of them left Joy Pavilion and walked towards the largest talisman shop in the city. That shopkeeper yesterday was long-winded for half a day, but he didn't say who the powerful talisman master that official Li's family hired was. He also heard it from hearsay. Arbor shook his head indifferently. He added some details and made it up again. Who would fight with a ghost spirit for 3 days and 2 nights? Wouldn't that alarm the entire city? Isn't that so? Qi Xianxian pursed her lips. Arbor suddenly stopped and stared at a man's robe hanging outside a ready-made clothing store. He snorted and muttered, so ugly. Ah! Qi Xianxian exclaimed in surprise. She turned around and saw that it was a man's robe. A blooming green lotus was embroidered on the cuffs and corners of the robe. It looked quite exquisite. Isn't it pretty? Qi Xianxian saw a tall young man trying on this robe. Arbor pursed his lips and said, it's so ugly. It's not even 1/10 as good as my embroidery. Huh? Qi Xianxian looked at Arbor strangely and said, Jojo, you're even learning embroidery. Mystic cultivators like us only need to focus on cultivation. How do you have the spare time to learn embroidery? Why don't you embroider a pouch for me next time? Qi Xianxian said with a grin. No. Arbor shook his head. I'll only embroider a lotus pouch for my lotus. Why did this sentence, my little hands only embroider for my husband, sound so ear-piercing? Why did she suddenly feel like her heart was being pricked? Qi Xuanxuan's heart ached, and she reached out to press her chest. Later on, she found out how beautiful Jojo's lotus embroidery was. She just couldn't understand where this little fellow got his confidence from. He actually said that the lotus embroidery of a ready-made clothing store wasn't even 1/10 as good as his. Just how arrogant was he? Only Prince Mo liked to wear the crooked Mo Lien embroidered by Jojo, showing off everywhere that it was so funny, but he was good-looking. No matter how ugly his clothes were, he was still handsome. The third store next to the clothing store was the largest talisman store in Jiulu City. However, before they reached the entrance, a Taoist priest holding a peach-wood sword chased after them from the talisman shop and shouted, "Evildoer, where do you think you're going?" Ah! A shrill scream was heard, and a woman who was being chased by the Taoist priest fell to the ground with a plop. She crawled forward in terror and just happened to crawl to Qiao Mu's side, reaching out to grab her. Before he could even cry out, "Miss, save me," a merciless little foot stepped on the back of his hand. Ah! The woman screamed like a pig being slaughtered. The Taoist priest chased after him, waving the peach-wood sword in his hand as he shouted anxiously, "The four directions command, demons and evils invade, talisman. Vanquish evil." Slap! The yellow talisman was stuck on the back of the woman's head, and it fluttered in the wind. Arbor blinked, then blinked again. This talisman obviously didn't have any talisman power. It was a fake talisman. When she turned her head and saw the Taoist priest in front of her, her eyes widened, and she shouted with a face full of shock, "It's you." The Taoist priest cupped his hands and smiled at her. "Miss, don't panic. Ghost spirit has been subdued by me. In 3 days and 3 nights, she will be burned to ashes by the talisman fire." Chapter 1585. "You don't recognize me?" Arbor sized him up and said expressionlessly, "I haven't seen you for several years, but you've put on quite a bit of weight." The Taoist priest was baffled. After carefully sizing up Arbor, he shook his head and said, "This humble Taoist doesn't recognize you. Do you still remember Quoto Village's little fatty Zhou? For directions command, demons and evils disperse. Evils, quickly submit." Arbor extended 2 fingers and expressionlessly gestured in front of the Taoist priest, pretending that she was swinging her peach-wood sword. The Taoist priest immediately widened his eyes in disbelief. You. The ghosts and monsters here are truly too fierce. Little friend, you'd better hurry and run. This humble Taoist won't earn those 100 taels of silver." Arbor was still expressionless. But the Taoist priest suddenly jumped up. "You're from Quoto Village." Arbor swept him a glance. "I didn't expect that you were a fake who pretended to be mysterious." The Taoist priest pounced over, wanting to cover Arbor's small mouth, but she dodged him. The Taoist priest smiled embarrassedly at her. Aya, little friend, it's a joyous occasion for us to meet an old friend in a foreign land. How about this humble Taoist will treat you to a meal at a restaurant today. How about it?" Arbor couldn't help but find it funny. Then she thought about how this Taoist priest might have pretended to be mysterious in Quoto Village, but he had never harmed anyone in the end, so she dropped the matter. Arbor shook her head and said, "I won't disturb your business anymore." She glanced at a middle-aged couple walking out of the talisman shop from the corner of her eye. Then she walked around the Taoist priest and walked into the talisman shop. She came today specifically to find out about the prices of talismans in the 6 prefectures. Next time, if she didn't have enough spirit coins, she could also draw talismans to earn money. "Mrs., this way please." When the shop assistant saw that Arbor's clothes were out of the ordinary, he hurriedly welcomed them with a smile and led them into the shop. "What kind of talismans do you want to buy?" Recently, this humble shop received a small batch of fire spirit talismans. The fire spirit is powerful and can protect you from danger. Are the 2 misses interested? Oh. How much are you selling this fire talisman for? Arbor asked curiously. This batch of medium-level fire talismans is priced at 1,000 spirit coins each. Wow. 1,000 spirit coins. Qi Xuanxuan's mouth was slightly agape. What about the body-securing talisman and the peace talisman? An intermediate safety talisman costs 50 spirit coins each. As for the body-securing talisman, it costs 100 spirit coins each. Oh. My shop is honest with all customers. This is basically the current market price. If this batch of fire talismans were to be auctioned, the price would be even higher. Maybe it'll be around 1,100 or 1,200. Arbor nodded his small head. He turned his hand and a high-level blue fire spirit talisman appeared in his palm. How much can this sell for? The shop assistant's eyes immediately widened. He took a step back and bowed respectfully. Could it be that this young lady is a talisman master? You're not here to buy talismans, but to sell them? Yes. Arbor replied noncommittally. Miss, please wait for a moment. I will immediately invite our talisman master over. After speaking, he hurriedly ran to invite the talisman master. When Xiao Mu turned her head, she saw Qi Xianxian glaring at her with round eyes. You're a talisman master. Yes, what's wrong? Heavens! What's with that calm expression of yours? Yesterday, they talked for so long about how powerful talisman masters were, but she wasn't moved at all. Chapter 1586. Today, in the blink of an eye, Qi Xianxian suddenly realized that the talisman master she worshipped so much was actually standing beside her. Why didn't you say so earlier? Qi Xianxian grumbled as she hit her. You really know how to keep secrets. I didn't keep it a secret. Arbor glanced at her, then turned to look at a middle-aged man who was brought over by the shop assistant. That man had a square head and big ears, and had a benevolent appearance. When he saw Arbor and Qi Xianxian, he smiled and nodded at them. May I know which one of you is the talisman master? Her. Qi Xianxian pointed at Arbor. Arbor handed over the blue fire spirit talisman in his hand. I want to know how much this fire spirit talisman can be sold for. After receiving the talisman that Xiao Mu handed over, the talisman appraiser master's eyes involuntarily brightened, and he looked up in excitement. This master, this talisman of yours is an advanced level fire talisman. Moreover, it's a blue fire spirit talisman. The power of this high-grade blue fire spirit talisman is incomparable to that of a middle-grade fire spirit talisman. The talisman master was extremely excited. He held the talisman in his hand as if he had obtained a treasure. This small store is willing to purchase this blue talisman for 12,000 spirit coins. Would the master be willing to part with it? Arbor took out 9 talismans, including the one in the talisman master's hand, and said, part with all of them. The talisman master's jaw probably dropped, and he didn't make a sound for a long time. When Arbor and Qi Xianxian were respectfully escorted out of the talisman store, half an incense stick had already passed. My God, you talisman masters really earn a lot of money. This talisman master casually sold 10 fire spirit talismans that ordinary people couldn't even dream of earning in their entire lives. He actually easily obtained 120,000 spirit coins. Arbor received a spirit coin card. Only then did he know that Shuntian Prefecture could pay by card. It wasn't worthwhile to hold a bunch of spirit coins and count them one by one. However, drawing these fire spirit talismans must have consumed a lot of mental energy and mystic energy. Qi Xianxian said, you must have spent a lot of time to draw these 10 fire spirit talismans. Why did you sell them all? You're not short of money now. It's good to keep a few for yourself. You want it? Arbor took out 10 fire spirit talismans and gave them to her. You can play with them. Qi Xianxian. What to do? He felt that he had befriended a tycoon through and through. Why does this feel so unreal? A certain child was so agitated that his footsteps were light. He followed Arbor dizzily and floated along. I think I just received a gift of 120,000 spirit coins. High-level blue talismans are no longer a challenge to me. I can draw about 2,000 high-grade blue talismans a night now. And they were all drawn with ebony. It was not that kind of talisman paper. She had already stopped using this talisman paper in battle. He still had a lot of talisman papers with him, and he had drawn a lot of them before. If he needed money in the future, he could use them to exchange for spirit coins. Arbor, who was walking in front, suddenly stopped. Qi Xianxian bumped into his back. She rubbed her nose and raised her head to look at the Pill Guild signboard. What's wrong? Do you want to buy pills? Then let's go in and take a look. There's a pill guild here too. Yes, from the upper 3 prefectures to the lower star domain, pill guilds and mystic cultivator guilds are everywhere. It's just that in the 6 prefectures, mystic cultivator guilds are called spirit cultivator guilds. Chapter 1587. Qi Xianxian told Arbor everything she knew. Oh. Talisman shops, on the other hand, are less common. I heard that after the zombie outbreak, many people were injured. Even the price of elixirs increased. Nowadays, both elixirs and elixirs are extremely expensive. Ordinary people can't even afford to buy the blood-staunching elixir. Not to mention the precious elixirs. Arbor stepped into the alchemy guild's door and saw a neat row of medicine cabinets. An old man was sitting behind the long cabinet, teaching a young apprentice how to identify herbs. When he saw Arbor and Qi Xianxian enter, he was stunned and quickly stood up with a smile. "Ladies, are you looking to buy some elixirs?" Arbor shook his head. "Selling." The old man was stunned. Qi Xianxian was also stunned. "Selling again?" Arbor took out a small jade bottle and threw it to the old man. 3 high-grade life extension elixirs. I wonder how much they can be sold for. High-grade life extension elixirs. The old man from the Dan Alliance was shocked. He hurriedly took out a small tweezer and a jade tray. He carefully poured out a pill and held it in front of him with the tweezer. He sniffed it twice, and his dim old eyes suddenly became clear. He stood up excitedly and quickly put the elixir back into the jade bottle. He cupped his hands and said to Arbor, "Sorry for the disrespect. I didn't know that this young lady is already a high-grade alchemist." Arbor shook his head. "This elixir was made by my master. He asked me to come and sell it." The old man heaved a sigh of relief. Qi Xianxian also heaved a sigh of relief. No, no, no. Her heart almost stopped beating. This young lady in front of her was the same age as her. Not only was her cultivation level high, but if it was revealed that she was both a talisman master and an alchemist, how could she live happily? What was the point of being friends with such a monster? She was being attacked every day and wanted to kill herself. Fortunately, this high-grade elixir was made by her master. Yes, yes. Her heart finally calmed down. Arbor blinked and looked at Qi Xianxian in confusion. He then turned to the old man and asked, "How much can it be sold for?" High-level life-prolonging pills, no matter in the past or in the future, will always be in high demand. Once they enter the market, however many there are, they will be snatched up. This life prolongation pill has purple veins, indicating that it's a high-grade pill. Its medicinal effects will definitely be superb. This old man is willing to pay 30,000 spirit coins each for the 3 life prolongation pills in little friend's hands. What do you think, little friend? 30,000 soul coins. 1. Qi Xianxian felt as if her heart had just gone through a long-distance run. At this moment it was thumping non-stop. What about this spirit returning liquid? Arbor threw 2 small bottles to the old man. The old man hurriedly opened it and his hands trembled again. It's actually a purple high-grade spirit returning liquid. Although the spirit returning liquid is of the same grade as a medium-grade pill, it wins in that everyone needs it. Every spirit master will recognize the spirit returning liquid and buy it. Wait. Little friend, this spirit returning liquid, unexpectedly, can this old man have a taste? Go ahead. Arbor waved his hand casually. The old man hurriedly poured out half a mouthful of the spirit returning liquid and drank it. Immediately after, his whole body trembled. He looked at Arbor in disbelief and said, "The spirit returning liquid made by your master can actually recover 1/5 of one's spirit energy in a short period of time." This was completely different from the low-grade spirit returning liquid that could recover 1/10 of one's spirit energy. Chapter 1588. Furthermore, this bottle of spirit returning liquid was enough for 2 uses. 2 uses. An ordinary bottle of spirit returning liquid could only replenish spiritual energy once. Yes. Arbor did not deny it and nodded. From the moment she made it, she had already realized that the effect of this spirit returning liquid was much better than the low-grade products that others used. Little friend, I am willing to pay 30,000 spirit coins for the 2 bottles of spirit returning liquid in your hands. The low-grade spirit returning liquid in the market was about 3,000 spirit coins. The old man was willing to pay 5 times the price for the 2 bottles of spirit returning liquid. It was a fair trade. Arbor nodded and was sent out of the door by the old man full of gratitude. After half an incense's time, Arbor and Qi Xianxian walked out of the alchemy guild with another 120,000 spirit coins in their spirit coin card. Qi Xuanxuan's face was already numb. She felt that this rich friend of hers not only knew how to spend, but also how to earn money so easily. No wonder she did not feel the pinch when spending money. It was because money came quickly. Qi Xianxian had guessed wrongly this time. Arbor did not feel the pinch when spending other people's money. That was why he paid so happily that with 240,000 spirit coins in his card and 290,000 spirit coins in his inner world, Arbor did not have to worry that he would not have enough money to spend in the future. He walked towards the city gate. Qi Xianxian followed him expressionlessly. She might have been dreaming just now. After leaving the door, Miss Qiao gave her a bottle of life-prolonging pill. There was 1 life-prolonging pill inside. She must have not woken up yet. This dream was too fucking realistic. There was a tea stall at the city gate. Arbor led Qi Xianxian to sit down and casually drank some herbal tea. They waited at the city gate for senior brother Situ and the rest. Logically speaking, with their strength, they should have arrived by now. She had already destroyed the arena at the entrance. They should not have encountered any danger. However, why had they not arrived yet? Not a single person had arrived. This situation did not seem right. Arbor sat in front of the tea stall and frowned. Qi Xianxian saw this and hurriedly said, "Jojo, don't worry. Your senior brother Situ might have been delayed by something. Let's wait a little longer." Xiao Mu hummed in agreement. Xiao Mu waited with Qi Xianxian until nightfall before listlessly following Qi Xianxian back to the Joy Pavilion. The 2 of them stayed at the Joy Pavilion for a full 5 days, but Situ Yi and the others were still nowhere to be seen. Could it be that they went directly to another city? Is that why he went astray from you? Arbor frowned as he looked at Qi Xianxian and muttered to himself, "Really? Yes." However, the registration for the Sun Moon Starry School was imminent. I think if they want to find you, they will definitely register. Maybe they will meet you in the Sunlight Academy. Alright. Let's go to the Sunlight Academy's registration site. Arbor nodded. Great. Then I'll go pack up and we'll leave right away. The Sunlight Academy's registration and assessment site was in Anka City. Let's take a flying eagle and get there before dark. How can a land whale be so fast? It has so many legs. Qi Xianxian pursed her lips and held her arm. We don't have to take the land whale. That's too expensive. Let's take a flying eagle this time. It'll be much cheaper. No, we'll just take the blue one. Qi Xianxian watched as she summoned a large green-blue bird and said in surprise, Isn't your mystic beast the little white snake? Chapter 1589. The morning sun shone brightly today. Blue Luan flew into the sky and spread its wings. With a slight bump, Qi Xianxian exclaimed and quickly steadied herself. Arbor sat on Blue Luan's back and tugged at Qi Xianxian, saying softly, "Be careful, don't fall." Qi Xianxian couldn't help but laugh. My little grand aunt, I'm a level 13 great mystic cultivator after all. How can I fall? Blue Luan's flying speed is still very fast. Arbor said, you'd better be careful. It's really fast. At this speed, I'm afraid we'll reach Anka City before the sky turns dark. While speaking, Qi Xianxian thought of something and turned to look at Arbor. She asked softly, but speaking of which, do you know the way to Anka City? I've never been to Anka City, how would I know the way? Arbor looked at the sky, speechless. Qi Xianxian was speechless. All right then. If we really don't know the way, we'll come down and ask someone for directions. Qi Xianxian pursed her lips and suggested. Is it really okay for you to be so unreliable? At first, she thought that the little fellow summoned Blue Luan because she knew the way. However, reality proved that this wasn't the case. She was overthinking everything. Blue Luan flew extremely fast in the sky and left Julu City far behind in the blink of an eye. The two people who had no sense of direction finally arrived at Anka City's gate when it was close to dusk. Midway, the two planned to come down and ask for directions, but when they got down, they realized that the city was filled with dust and sand and was completely deserted. There was no one to ask. After circling in the sky for a long time, they finally found this city. Qi Xianxian couldn't help but break out in cold sweat. Sigh. She really didn't expect Shantian Prefecture to be so desolate and so far away from each other. It's simply incomparable to our Shaoxian nation's capital city. In our Shaoxian nation's capital city, it's overcrowded everywhere. Recalling the beautiful scenery of her hometown, Qi Xuanxuan's face was filled with nostalgia. After the capital city built a fortification, basically everyone rushed to the capital city. It was so lively. Forget it, this is already a thing of the past. Jojo, do you think Anka City will ask us to pay the entrance fee again? Arbor snorted. What do you think? Look at the lineup in front, they must be charging the entrance fee. Speaking of which, between the various cities of Shantian Prefecture, just the cost of entering the city was enough to earn a large sum of money. Not to mention that every foreign citizen who wanted to stay in the city temporarily had to pay spirit coins every day. Qi Xianxian puffed up her cheeks. The cities of Shantian Prefecture are really a money-making business. Look at them, even the soldiers guarding the city are eating greedily. One look and you can tell that they aren't good people, Qi Xianxian muttered softly. Arbor looked at her helplessly. Alright, other people's business has nothing to do with us. Let's see how much we have to pay to enter the city. I feel like this Anka city is slightly bigger than Julu City. Maybe his entrance fee will be higher than Julu City's, Arbor analyzed. What? Qi Xianxian couldn't help but cry out. Heavens! Could it be that these people were robbers in their previous lives? One spirit coin wasn't enough for the entrance fee. They actually wanted more. Arbor shook his head. The world today is like this. If you want to survive, you can only abide by the laws of this world, that's all. Chapter 1590. You can pass now. Next. The city guard bellowed and waved away an old man who was pushing a wheelbarrow like a fly. He urged him to enter the city quickly and not block the way. The old man's left leg was slightly lame and he stumbled as he walked. His movements were slightly slow. The soldier urged him a few times and his eyes were filled with impatience. After the old man entered the city, a middle-aged woman followed behind him and bowed to the city guard with a basket in her hand. I'm out of the city to do some small business. The woman smiled and said, I just left this morning. Can you waive my entrance fee? I just paid 2 spirit coins yesterday. You're really bold to make such an unreasonable request. The soldier's face darkened as he said angrily, if I waive your entrance fee today, what will the others think? When the city lord blames us, who can bear the responsibility? Can you bear the responsibility or can I bear the responsibility? The soldier reprimanded sternly. The woman sobbed and said, but for small businesses like us, we have to go in and out of the city frequently and we can't earn much in a day. If we have to pay 2 spirit coins every time we enter the city, won't we suffer a huge loss? I have a residence permit and it hasn't expired yet. Sir Soldier, can't you make an exception? This is the rule. Do you want to break the rule? Do you believe that I won't arrest you immediately? The city guard shouted angrily with a dark face. Don't waste everyone's time. If you don't want to enter the city, hurry up and get lost. Those who want to enter, come in. Those who don't want to pay can get lost. This is the rule set by the city lord. Every time we enter the city, we have to pay 2 spirit coins as entrance fee. No one can be an exception. The woman cried miserably and helplessly. She could only take out 2 spirit coins and hand it to the soldier. Then, she bent her back and sighed pitifully as she moved into the city. Qi Xianxian pouted and said, "Tisk, they're really unreasonable." "You're right, Jojo. They really don't even spit out the bones. They're asking for 2 spirit coins. Damn it, this is twice the price of Julu City. Forget it. It's just a small amount of money. Don't waste your breath on them," Arbor said indifferently. He followed the group and soon arrived at the city gate. Arbor took out 4 spirit coins and threw them to the soldier. Then, he glanced at him coldly. "Can we go in now?" "Us." A cold voice sounded out. For some reason, the city guard felt a slight shock in his heart. He hurriedly nodded and said, "Ladies, please." Originally, he only thought that the little girl in front of him was very beautiful, but after looking at her for a while, he felt a sharp pain in his head, so he didn't dare to look at her blindly. Wenka City was the largest city north of Shantian Prefecture. Its architectural style was similar to that of Julu City. There were tall bunkers built with beige-colored stones everywhere. As soon as they entered the city, there was a wide official road. There were many small stalls on both sides of the road. Most of them were stalls selling small items. Every stall owner was trying their best to promote their products to the citizens who had just entered the city. There were very few people selling food. Occasionally, one would see someone selling fruits. Those were oranges or pears, but most of them had already turned black and rotted. It was obvious that they weren't fresh. How could this kind of thing possibly catch Qiao Mu's eye? Chapter 1591. Jojo, why don't we find an inn to stay at first? After we settle down, we'll go out for a stroll in the city. What do you think? Actually, the two didn't have any luggage. It was just that when they went out, they carried a small cloth bag with them to hide their identities. Apart from a set of old clothes and food, there was basically nothing else in the cloth bag. The 2 girls were meticulous and kept a low profile. In addition, Arbor's newly made aura-concealing talisman was already a yellow-level talisman, so it could completely conceal their cultivation aura. Once it was affixed, it could be maintained for a month, allowing the 2 to look like ordinary people when they walked outside. Other than Arbor's attractive appearance, no one would know that they were great mystic cultivators above level 13. Being outside was different from being at home, so they naturally had to be careful and take precautions in everything they did. Qi Xianxian said with a smile, "Sigh, that Joy Pavilion's boss still has some conscience. When we left, he even gave us 10 meat buns for free. It's rare for him to be so magnanimous. If it weren't for these 10 meat buns, I would definitely tear down his Joy Pavilion before I left. What an unscrupulous merchant, charging us so much for lodging. It's 20 spirit coins a day. Including food, it's 40 spirit coins a day. The most abominable thing is that this guy isn't willing to give us a discount. Asking him to reduce his food and lodging expenses is like asking for his life. It's simply unreasonable." Arbor's mouth twitched, and he helplessly glanced at her. "Actually, this is only a small amount of money. The two of them stayed at Joy Pavilion for 6 days and only spent a little more than 200 spirit coins. It's not too expensive, right? Tycoon Xiao thought. Previously, he had spent 480 spirit coins on the land whale. Although it's a small amount of money, we can't let this unscrupulous merchant swindle us. Qi Xianxian puffed up her cheeks. Alright, I know you'll live a frugal life. Arbor nodded and said, then I'll leave the task of finding a good inn to you. Qi Xianxian smiled. Alright, just wait and see. I'll definitely find a cheap and comfortable inn. After all, he would probably have to stay in Anka City for a period of time before he entered the academy, so it was his top priority to make himself comfortable. The two of them walked through the bustling streets of Anka City and headed toward the inner city. The sounds of hawking on both sides of the street were mixed with all kinds of voices, creating a lively scene. Qi Xianxian skipped and skipped as she walked in front of the crowd. Sometimes, she would run to the front of the crowd to watch others juggle. Other times, she would join in the fun to watch others do business. She had a smile on her face the entire time. Arbor observed her for a long time. She raised her small hand and touched her ice, cold little stoic face. She criticized inwardly, this is probably how girls of the same age behave normally. Schwa. Suddenly, a large folding fan that was large enough to cover her entire face unfurled in front of her. The words on the fan read, romantic and elegant, tasting half a lifetime's worth of delicacies. Like a jade tree facing the wind, tasting the flowers of the world. Written in the middle were the words, beauty like jade. What a load of crap. Arbor looked up and saw a man in his late 20s with a large black mole at the corner of his mouth. His beady eyes were shining as he looked at Arbor, and the saliva at the corner of his mouth was about to drip down. Chapter 1592. Arbor looked at that person in disgust and walked to the side. Unexpectedly, the young man with the black mole also moved 2 steps to the side and continued to block her path. He smiled obsequiously and said, "Where are you going, little lady? Big brother will send you back." Idiot! Arbor shouted coldly, her stoic face expressionless. Gee idiot! Who was she talking about? That man turned back to look at the 4 burly men accompanying him and simultaneously put on an expression that said, "Young master, I'm an idiot." The man nodded in satisfaction and turned to face Arbor with a chuckle. "Little lady, this young master is the son of the 3rd steward of Anka City's city lord residence. Let's get to know each other." Scram! Xiao Mu's concise and comprehensive words expressed her inner impatience. Arbor stared expressionlessly at the man with the big mole in front of her with a cold expression, her thin brows unconsciously furrowed. Qi Xianxian ran to Arbor's side and glared at the man with the big mole in anger. She shouted coldly, "Who are you?" One look at this person's wretched face and she knew that he wasn't a good person. He actually dared to block her Jojo's path. Was he tired of living? The man with the big mole chuckled with an ugly face. Scram! At that moment, he could only see the little iceberg's stoic face. He hated that his mother didn't give birth to him with 2 more eyes. Of course, he didn't like the round-faced Qi Xianxian who only had a delicate and pretty face. Qi Xianxian was instantly enraged. "Hey, who are you telling to scram? Who are you? This young master is the son of the 3rd steward of Anka City's city lord residence. Who do you think I am?" The man with the big mole smiled smugly. "In the entire city lord residence, my father's authority is second only to the city lord, the senior steward and the 2nd steward. My father only needs to say one word, and the 2 of you can immediately be chased out of the city. So, little lady, do you want to?" Before the man with the big mole could finish speaking, he suddenly realized that the little lady in front of him suddenly moved. A body-securing talisman landed on Big Mole's body. The man with the big mole suddenly felt that he couldn't move his body. He stood upright on the street and stared at the little girl in a daze. What was going on? Why couldn't it move? Just now, he saw the girl take out some kind of talisman and throw it at him, and then he couldn't move. If that was the case, then it must be this little girl's doing. The man with the big mole stared at Arbor in shock. When he opened his mouth, he realized that he couldn't make a sound. He couldn't help but panic. What's going on? How come even his voice was damaged? Could it be this little girl's doing again? Was this girl even human? Without saying a word, he pinned him down in the middle of the street, making the passers-by look at him like he was a monkey. Now, he was even poisoned into a mute. Oh my God! Didn't he just find her cute and wanted to talk to her? Was there a need to make him so miserable the moment she made a move? The man with the big mole didn't know that the body-securing talisman and the poison powder were just appetizers. Arbor slowly took out a water spirit talisman from his inner world. He lightly flicked it in his hand and suddenly opened the talisman. With a flick of his finger, the water spirit talisman suddenly split open. The water spirit energy that filled the air suddenly wrapped around the man with the big mole 2 or 3 times, wrapping him into a cocoon. Everyone on the street stopped in their tracks in fright. They all looked dumbfoundedly at the man with the big mole. Chapter 1593. They all had some impression of this man. Wasn't he the son of the third manager of the city lord's estate? He was the only son of the third manager's family and usually caused a lot of trouble in Anka City. No one dared to provoke him because of his father's special authority. If they provoked him, his father would definitely jump out, and at that time, they would have to bear the consequences. Perhaps even their right to live in Anka City would be taken away. Hey, look! The third manager's son seems to have kicked an iron plate. Everyone took pleasure in his misfortune. Although they were only secretly communicating and making sarcastic remarks, their eyes faintly revealed excitement. Great, someone could finally teach this wastrel a lesson for them. Go ahead and teach him a lesson, none of them would mind. The man with the big mole wanted to make a sound, but only a few monosyllabic words came out of his throat. He looked at the little girl in front of him in a panic. The little stoic looked at him coldly without a trace of emotion in her eyes. Didn't you want to get to know me? Come, let the talisman in my hand get to know you. Attack talisman. Arbor's small hand shook, and to everyone's surprise, a dozen attack talismans appeared in this little girl's hand. This kind of yellow-level blue attack talisman's attack power already reached 80% of a talisman practitioner's cultivation. What did this mean? It meant that the dozen or so talismans that the little fellow casually threw out each had the power of a level 11 mystic cultivator's attack. At the same time, a dozen or so level 11 mystic cultivators launched a sudden attack at the man with the big mole. The man with the big mole really wanted to beg for mercy, but he had no other choice since he couldn't speak. The man with the big mole could only place his hopes on the 4 burly men behind him. Unfortunately, before those 4 burly men could attack, Qi Xianxian rushed forward and threw each of them far away with a punch. The man with the big mole was simply stupefied. He couldn't understand why the 2 little girls in front of him looked so mediocre and ordinary. They actually had such terrifying strength as soon as they attacked. He was well aware of the strength of those 4 burly men. Although level 12 mystic cultivators were nothing in Shantian Prefecture, Wenka City was only a small city and was still some distance away from Shantian Prefecture's capital. A level 12 mystic cultivator was considered one of the more outstanding people in Anka City. At this moment, the passers-by were unable to express their excitement with words. They secretly exchanged small glances and muttered a few strange words in low voices. They were extremely happy in their hearts that when they went back later, they would spread the news that Big Mole had been humiliated today everywhere. At this moment, the water spirit talisman had completed its final structure. Everyone looked again and saw that big black mole was completely sealed in a square icebox. Separated by a large block of ice, Big Mole looked at the little girl standing in front of him with eyes full of fear. His 2 eyes were still in the state of panic, and his 4 limbs, including his facial expression, could not move at all. Qi Xian clapped her small hands and walked to the icebox with small steps. She circled around the icebox once before suddenly covering her eyes with her hands and shrieking, "So disgusting." It turned out that Big Black Mole's tears and snot were dripping down from the icebox. At this moment, they had condensed into 3 streaks of ice that hung below his nose and the corners of his eyes. Chapter 1594. Third Steward, this is bad. Young Master was beaten up on the street, and he's severely injured now. He's dying in an alley next to the main street. What? The third steward's expression changed, and he stood up from his seat. This steward was about 60 years old. He had a short goatee, and he was his only son with a big black mole. He treasured his son very much since he was young, and he raised a crafty playboy. Third steward, quickly send someone to check on young Master. He's not doing well now. How dare you? Who dares to do this to my son? Third steward, I don't know what happened either. By the time we rushed over, young Master already had such a bitter look on his face. The culprit has already left. Why don't you ask passers-by? There are so many people, but none of them saw who did this to my son. The middle-aged man who was reporting the situation to the third steward smiled bitterly and shook his head. I'm sorry, third steward. I've asked several passers-by, but none of them can tell me what the culprit looks like. They only know that it's a young girl. Ridiculous. There are so many young girls in Anka City. Where do you want me to find one of the culprit? The third steward said angrily, besides, can a young girl defeat my son's 4 strong men so easily? Do you think that's possible? The middle-aged man pursed his lips noncommittally. In fact, it was not impossible. After all, there was always someone better than you. All right, don't say anything else. Quickly take me to see what's going on with young Master. When the third steward was led to his son by his subordinates, he realized that his son was in a terrible state. It was not like what his subordinates had reported. He was in a worse state than being on the verge of death. Not only was his face bruised and swollen, but he was also sealed in a solid block of ice. The third steward hurried forward and touched the ice outside. It was a thick block of ice that sealed him inside. It was already good enough that he was not suffocated to death. Through the ice, he could see his son's horrified face, which was covered in tears and snot. Seeing his son like this, he was so angry that he didn't know where to vent. He roared at his son through the ice, "Who did this to you?" The middle-aged man under the third steward hurriedly stepped forward and said softly, "Steward, don't blame him for now. From what I can see, the young master's condition is not good. We have to get him out of the ice as soon as possible." The third steward felt that it was very strange. He had said so much, but his son had not said a word. Why isn't he talking? The third steward asked. This. The middle-aged man stammered, "Young master seems to have been planted with a body-securing talisman and was frozen in ice by someone. Moreover, I heard that everyone says that the female talisman master is very powerful. She threw a dozen attack young master. All of them penetrated the layer of ice and directly hit young master's body, but the ice didn't break. It can be seen that her control over the water spirit is very strong. He's a great spirit master." The third manager's expression was extremely unsightly. If she was a great spirit master, with his cultivation, perhaps he would never have the opportunity to take revenge on her in this lifetime. Chapter 1595. Find her. Dig 3 feet into the ground and find this female talisman master. What should we do, young master? Send someone to invite Master Yen over immediately, the third steward said. The middle-aged man hurriedly left to carry out the order. Master Yen was the most famous talisman master in the city. He would definitely be able to remove the immobilization talisman on young master. Just as the third steward and his men were scrambling to find Master Yen for help, Arbor and Qi Xianxian had already found a quiet and comfortable inn and settled down. Jojo, how long can that immobilization talisman immobilize Big Mole? Qi Xianxian asked in confusion. It can immobilize him for at least 2 hours. However, I added 10 immobilization talismans on that guy. Arbor said indifferently. As soon as he said that, Qi Xianxian opened her mouth slightly and burst into laughter. Big Mole was really unlucky. He could have provoked anyone, but he had to provoke Jojo. According to my calculations, he'll probably be immobilized until tomorrow morning. Qi Xianxian couldn't help but laugh again. That loafer was going to be immobilized until tomorrow morning. This was too funny. It was a pity that she couldn't continue to observe Big Mole's pitiful expression. Let's rest early. We've been busy the whole day. Most importantly, they had spent a long time looking for the way. The two of them had no sense of direction and almost couldn't find where Anka City was. Of course, they couldn't tell others about this. If they did, they would be laughing their heads off. Alright, we'll go shopping tomorrow. By then. It'll be the day of the entrance examination in 2 days. Let's go to the mission announcement area tomorrow. There might be an announcement about the examination. Xiao Mu nodded in response and then went to rest. The next day, the two of them slept until the sun was high up in the sky. After eating something, they left the inn and walked towards the center of the city. The mission announcement area is usually at the center of the city. I wonder if Shuntian Prefecture will be different from ours, Qi Xianxian muttered. Why don't we go and accept a mission or something? I'll accept a small mission and complete it as soon as possible. Then, I'll be able to earn some money. Rather than accepting a mission, I might as well sell a talisman. It's more valuable. Arbor said indifferently. Qi Xianxian was immediately dealt a blow. Heavens, you're such a tycoon. Can you shut up and stop talking? Hey, there's a talisman shop here. Do you want to go in and take a look? Well, there's no need. He didn't want to sell talismans now anyway. Just as the two of them were about to pass by the talisman shop, a man and a woman walked out of the door and met each other. The man was about 20 years old and had delicate features. The woman was about 17 or 18 years old. She was wearing a peacock blue dress and a necklace around her neck. She looked a little arrogant. The two of them looked to be about the same age. When the woman walked out with the man's arm, she glanced at Arbor and Qi Xianxian from the corner of her eyes. When they met, the man nodded politely at Xiao Mu and her companion. The woman frowned and asked, "Senior brother, do you know them?" The man called senior brother by the woman was slightly taken aback. He shook his head and said, "Oh, I don't know them." The girl pursed her small mouth, and her gaze circled Xiao Mu's face again. In the end, she pulled her senior brother out of the talisman shop. Qi Xianxian turned to look at the two of them. She pouted and whispered to Arbor. Chapter 1596. Although the two of them look similar in age, they don't look compatible at all. The man looks gentle and refined with a good temper. The woman, on the other hand, is irritable and arrogant. Who knows who she's trying to impress? Arbor sneered and turned to look at Qi Xianxian. We don't know each other anyway, so why bother? Qi Xianxian nodded. The two of them walked around the city center and saw the announcement. 2 days later, the Sunlight Academy will conduct the first round of student selection in Anka City. If you're interested, you can go to the registration area in the city center to register and take the test. Seeing how detailed it was, Qi Xianxian silently read the announcement twice to memorize it. Alright, I've memorized it. She reached out to grab Arbor and the two of them walked back. If there's nothing else, why don't we go into closed-door cultivation for the next 2 days? Anyway, there's nothing much to see in Anka City all day long. It's probably just a little bigger than Julu City. That's good too. Xiao Mu nodded in agreement. However, the two of them didn't know that their closed-door cultivation for the past 2 days had made the people outside very anxious. The third steward's son had been sealed in that ice block for 20 hours. The third steward had invited many capable people and finally managed to melt his son out of the ice block. It was truly a Herculean effort. After finally getting his son out, the third steward realized that his son still couldn't speak, as if he had been poisoned mute. Now, he didn't dare to throw a tantrum and hurriedly sent people to search for that female talisman master. He didn't hesitate to spend a huge sum of money to send everyone in the city to find Arbor, just so that Arbor could cure his son's poison. However, Arbor was completely unaware of all this. When she and Qi Xianxian came out of closed-door cultivation, the Sunlight Academy's registration was already in full swing. The two of them tidied up and ate something before rushing to the Sunlight Academy's registration area. Looking from afar, the center of the city was filled with people. The two of them looked at each other. Qi Xianxian laughed foolishly. As expected of the Sunlight Academy, the registration area is really packed. With so many people signing up, we will probably have to wait for a long time. There were 4 assessment tables set up at the registration point. The two of them were at the end of the third line. Looking at the line moving at the speed of a turtle, Arbor couldn't help but look around. After looking around for a long time, Arbor couldn't help but feel a little discouraged when he didn't see Situ-E and the others. Where did senior brother Situ and the others go? Could it be that they had some kind of fortuitous encounter as soon as they entered Shantian Prefecture? Jojo, don't think too much. Since we're already here, let's just take things as they come. Anyway, we don't know where to go. Why don't we go to the Sunlight Academy and train there for half a year? We can improve our cultivation by leaps and bounds. What do you think? Of course, it's up to fate to increase one's cultivation. Hey, Jojo. Look over there, another table has been moved out. Is it because there are too many people, so they added a test table at the last minute? Very likely. Arbor nodded. Then let's hurry over. Qi Xianxian was quick to react. She grabbed Arbor and jumped towards the 5th table that had just been moved out. Coincidentally, the two of them occupied the first position at the front of the table. It's the two of you. An arrogant voice suddenly sounded in their ears. Arbor looked up. It was the man and woman she met at the entrance of the talisman shop 2 days ago. Chapter 1597. We are Year 7 seniors from the Sunlight Academy. Because there are more people signing up this year, we added an additional assessment table. But you are so young, are you sure you can pass the assessment? The girl was wearing a peacock blue dress. Her chin was slightly raised, and she had an arrogant attitude. Arbor frowned, and Qi Xianxian muttered softly, "Do you really think you're a peacock just because you're wearing peacock blue clothes?" The girl's expression changed slightly, and she said angrily, "What did you say?" Qi Xianxian pouted and shrugged, and said to the girl, "Instead of talking so much nonsense, you could have given us the assessment long ago. Whether we can succeed or not, we will only know after we take the assessment." The girl laughed coldly, "Can't you see that there are so many people queuing behind? If you know you won't succeed and still insist on queuing, wouldn't you be causing trouble for the people behind you?" Qi Xianxian was furious, "How do you know we won't succeed? How difficult is your assessment? If you don't tell us, how will we know?" The woman chuckled and said coldly, "Our assessment is based on many aspects. Not only does it test one's willpower, it also tests one's resistance to external temptations. This represents how far one can go on the path of cultivation. Stop fooling around here at such a young age. Hurry up and leave. The girl said impatiently. Qi Xianxian couldn't believe her ears, and argued, "You're too self-opinionated. If we don't pass, how do you know we're wasting our time? Maybe you're the one wasting our time." The man at the side frowned and said to the girl, "Junior sister, don't be so self-opinionated. Let them try." When Qi Xianxian heard this, she couldn't help but glance at the woman. She snorted and said, "Hey, your senior brother's words are fair. What about you? You're obstructing us for no reason. Don't tell me you're afraid that our results will be better than yours, so you're trying to make your presence known. You." The girl stared at the two of them angrily, and her lips curled into a cold smile. She looked at the long queue behind and said, "What do you think? Do you agree to let these two guys waste their time? Junior sister." The man frowned slightly and glanced at the peacock blue woman disapprovingly. The peacock blue woman, He Wei, curled her lips in a disapproving manner. She smiled at the man and said, "Senior brother, I'm just thinking about the people behind us. There are so many people lining up there right now, we have to make the best use of our limited time. You also know that every test takes a certain amount of time. If these two people's minds aren't firm enough, they might get lost in our testing environment. The people behind could only watch helplessly. At the very least, they would have to wait for the time it took for an incense stick to burn. If all of them are like them, who knows how long it will take to complete this test? What kind of test is this? You make it sound so awesome. Test it for us. Do you want to see us get lost?" Qi Xianxian glanced at the woman with disdain. The test hadn't even been done yet, so where did all this nonsense come from? Arbor did not say a word. He glanced at the peacock blue woman, He Wei. Arbor never liked to talk too much about things that could be crushed with strength. "Junior sister He Wei, don't mess around." Chapter 1598. Su Liang, who was addressed as senior brother by the peacock blue girl, narrowed his eyes and glared warningly at the peacock blue girl. The latter suddenly stood up and walked briskly to the side of the crowd. A short while later, she walked over with a smile while holding the arm of a gorgeous girl in a pink dress whose hair was covered in pearls and emeralds. Through the crowd, He Wei whispered into the gorgeous girl's ear. The girl in pink looked at Arbor and Qi Xianxian with an unfriendly gaze. Xiao Mu and Qi Xianxian met each other's eyes in confusion. The girl in pink walked up and stared at the two of them. "I'm Wuxia, the daughter of Sunlight Academy's principal. How old are you two this year? Are you qualified to sign up? Our Sunlight Academy can't sign up more than 20 years old. You must be a level 13 mystic cultivator or above. The strength I'm talking about refers to actual combat strength. I'm not saying that you can smoothly pass this test just by using medicine to boost your cultivation to a level 13 mystic cultivator. Because your opponent might be a level 14 or level 15 mystic cultivator or even an early stage spiritual cultivator. Are you sure you have a way to win in our academy's simulated environment? I don't mind telling you one thing. The injuries and deaths you suffer in the testing environment are all real. So you have to consider carefully. I don't think you can bear the consequences of losing." The daughter of Sunlight Academy's principal, Wuxia, crossed her arms and raised her chin slightly as she spoke coldly to the two girls in front of her. Arbor glanced at her indifferently. "Liar." Wuxian's expression instantly turned ugly. Being called a liar to her face. This feeling made the usually proud Wuxia very uncomfortable. Especially the other party's stoic face. It was cold and expressionless, but it was strangely cold and beautiful. She was young, and her face still had some childishness. If she grew up another 2 years, which girl would dare to stand beside her? Qi Xianxian immediately nodded in agreement and said, I saw that some of the people lining up were only level 11 and level 12 mystic cultivators. Were they injured or dead? If the testing environment is as you said, either death or injury, do you think those people are idiots? All of them came here to sign up for death. Are you tired of living? I really don't know if this young miss is stupid or if she thinks everyone else is stupid. Her IQ is really frightening. Yuxian glared at Qi Xianxian angrily. This feeling of being slapped in the face made her feel very uncomfortable, but she had no way to refute it. Damn it! Looking at these two young girls, he thought that they were inexperienced. He didn't expect them to be so hard to fool. If she really let them pass the test smoothly, she would have to see this damned stoic face every day. Wouldn't her heart feel as uncomfortable as if she had eaten a fly? Senior sister Yuxian, forget it. He Wei sneered. Since there are people who aren't afraid of death, let's let them try this test environment. He Wei smiled contemptuously at the two girls. In any case, whether they die or get injured, it's their own responsibility. Since they don't believe me, then let them suffer in the testing environment. After saying that, he gave Yuxian a look, and a sinister smile appeared on his face. Yuxian immediately understood and nodded at He Wei. Since the two little girls were determined to die, she naturally couldn't stop them. Chapter 1599. One must know that the degree of danger in this kind of mimicry environment was also divided into low, medium and high. Everything was within her control. These two wretched lasses, they had just arrived and yet they dashed around like little calves. It was time to teach them a lesson. Arbor's eyes flashed as she glanced at Yuxian indifferently. She thought to herself, this woman is obviously scheming something, don't think that I don't know. Just now that woman's eyes were flickering, it was obvious that there was something strange about her. It was just that in the face of overwhelming strength, any means of evil and monsters would become nothing but fleeting clouds. Yuxian took out an exquisite red little box. She opened the box and took out a ring inlaid with a bright yellow-colored gem and wore it on her finger. She glanced at Arbor proudly. If you want to back out now, it's still not too late. After saying that, her disdainful gaze sized up Arbor and Qi Xianxian. Two ordinary young ladies who didn't even have the slightest bit of profound energy actually wanted to bluff their way through and sneak into their Sunlight Academy to study. What kind of joke was this? It was simply wishful thinking. I'll test first. Arbor threw her this sentence coldly. Wait. Senior brother Su Liang couldn't help but stand up as he looked at Yuxian and He Wei with an expression of disapproval. These two obviously wanted to make things difficult for these two young ladies in front of them. Actually, during the first entrance test, they only needed to touch the spirit testing stone once. Only those who were tested by the spirit testing stone and their cultivation had reached level 14 would be given preferential treatment and be sent into the mimicry environment for further testing. But now, these two young ladies obviously didn't have the slightest bit of profound energy fluctuation. Yuxian and He Wei's actions were obviously targeting the two of them, and senior brother Su Liang couldn't stand it anymore. In my opinion, let's use the spirit testing stone first to test their cultivation level before deciding whether to send them into the mimicry environment. Hearing senior brother Su Liang's pleading, Yuxian and He Wei hated Arbor and Qi Xianxian even more. In Yuxian's eyes, Arbor had almost upgraded to a vixen. She cursed in her heart. She's so young, yet she knows how to seduce men and make them speak up for her. How shameless. Of course, Arbor didn't know what the two women were thinking. She just looked curiously at the ring on Yuxian's hand. This ring should also be a spirit tool. Its greatest function was to mimic the environment. Normally, it relied on absorbing the spirit chi of heaven and earth to support this little spirit tool. After you enter this simulated environment, you will encounter all kinds of beasts, Yuxian said in a condescending tone, your goal is to defeat at least 5 beasts. Only then can you come out. Or, if you can persist in this simulated environment for 2 hours, you will pass the test. Everyone couldn't help but be shocked when they heard this. Persist for 2 hours. He didn't know how many beasts there were inside. If the beasts attacked together, not to mention 2 hours, they might not even last for half an incense stick's worth of time. Arbor looked at Wuxia disapprovingly. She didn't think highly of this woman now. After saying so much, she purposely hid all the things that one had to pay attention to in the simulated environment. Was she trying to make her passively take a beating after entering the simulated environment and be caught off guard? From the looks of it, that senior brother Su Liang's character was still slightly better. Chapter 1600. It was a pity that as a man, he did not have the nerve to argue with his 2 junior sisters. Wuxia turned the ring, and everyone saw a light screen appear in front of them. The red light screen was very dazzling, and the people standing in the front row could not help but close their eyes. When they opened them again, they saw a closed transparent shield in front of the table. Wuxia stood in front of the transparent shield and looked at Arbor proudly. She laughed coldly and said, "How is it? Do you still want to go in?" Arbor ignored her and turned to look at Qi Xianxian. He nodded at her to tell her not to worry, then he turned around and entered the transparent shield. The moment he walked in, he felt that the scene in front of him was somewhat familiar. With a rumble, a bolt of lightning fell from the sky. Arbor felt that the plane in front of him was very, very familiar. Wait, wasn't this the thunderous plane from before? She did not expect that this simulated environment could replay the scenes that she had experienced before and simulate the entire thunderous plane. This was really amazing. Arbor ran wildly on the thunderous plane, and his sharp eyes dodged the bolts of lightning that fell from the sky. Outside the transparent shield, everyone could see a slender figure moving back and forth continuously. Her speed was extremely fast. Although she was covered by a transparent shield and her movement space was very small, her movement speed was not something that everyone could see clearly. She had basically turned into an afterimage, moving up and down inside the shield. Fast. So fast that it was almost impossible to see her figure. So fast. Senior brother Su Liang could not help but exclaim. Wuxia and He Wei were also stunned. The 2 of them looked uneasy, their faces alternating between green and white. He Wei moved to Wuxia's side and asked softly, "Senior sister Wuxia, did you activate the highest level of the simulated environment?" Wuxia said angrily, "Do you think I'm stupid? I can't even differentiate between the high and low levels. This is already the highest level of the simulated environment." However, Arbor's ease really made people unhappy. After such a long time, not a single bolt of lightning hit Arbor. At this time, lightning and thunder crisscrossed within the shield, and Arbor was running wildly between lightning and thunder. Her entire body was like a bolt of lightning. Most likely, those below the level of Great Spirit Master would not be able to see through her movements. Only those with strong spiritual sense could see it clearly. Xiao Mu halted her footsteps and looked up at the thunderous plane. She could not stay here any longer. She had to find a way out. Arbor didn't know how long he had been in there, but he was getting impatient. Roar! A furious roar came from the thunderous plains. Xiao Mu reflexively dodged, and then she focused her eyes again. Damn it, it was a mammoth, about 10 times her height. This was probably just a mammoth formed by spiritual energy in a simulated environment. Therefore, although it looked huge, it might not be very powerful. With a light tap of her foot, Xiao Mu had already dashed towards the mammoth. Midway, a miniature wooden club appeared in his small hand. In the blink of an eye, the wooden club became twice the size of a household club. Everyone's eyeballs almost fell out of their sockets as they watched from outside. Arbor carried the wooden club on her shoulder and landed on the mammoth's trunk with a whoosh. Without another word, she smashed the club down on the mammoth's trunk. Senior brother Su Liang was slightly shocked. Chapter 1601. The little girl's move looked extremely vicious. Senior brother Su Liang could not help but be stunned. The little girl's methods were not easy to deal with. Junior sisters Uxian and He Wei were making things difficult for her. Could there be any good outcome? On the other side, the mammoth's nose was hit hard by the club. As if it had a real body, it let out a miserable howl. The little girl stepped on its head and flipped in the air. With an instant flash, she had already moved to the side. She held the club tightly with both hands and stepped on the air. She was slightly suspended in midair, and her eyes emitted waves of cold light. Suddenly, it swooped down and launched another attack like a mammoth. The huge vibration spread in everyone's ears as if it was substantial. But in fact, the battle between Arbor and the mammoth, which was sealed by the shield, would not fall into anyone's ears at all. However, for some reason, everyone seemed to have heard that earth-shattering sound with their own ears. But they felt that the sharp screeches were still echoing in their ears. The air around them instantly quieted down. Everyone watched dumbfounded as the mammoth scattered like ashes and turned into a cloud of spirit fog, slowly disappearing in front of Arbor. This visual conflict was very huge. One move, it was just one move. Arbor finished off the entire mammoth. Her feet landed on the ground, and she slowly walked forward. Uxian's words just now echoed in her ears. Uxian meant that as long as she finished off the 5 giant beasts, she could leave this place. Since that was the case, she would go find the beasts and finish them off one by one. Boom! 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 Heavy footsteps, accompanied by the sound of a big hammer dragging on the ground, came towards Arbor. Arbor looked carefully. It turned out that a warrior in huge armor had formed in this spirit fog. This warrior was about 2 meters tall and held a big hammer in his right hand. His hammer was very huge. When he walked just now, it was this hammer that made the sound of dragging on the ground. At this time, the soldier's eyes were focused on Arbor, and there was a ruthless light in his eyes. Arbor looked at him coldly, looking at the black armor on his shoulders. That should be a custom-made armor. Although it was only formed from spiritual energy, its defense should be enough to withstand all attacks from mystic cultivators level 15 and below. The club, Jin, in Xiao Mu's hand grew longer again. She stomped on the ground fiercely and shot towards the soldiers like an arrow. In the face of a battle, she never thought of running away. Fight! Fight to the end. This was her usual style of doing things. Everyone inside the shield was stunned. Senior brother Su Liang silently glanced at the dean's daughter. Junior sister Uxian was really too reckless. She actually activated the highest state of the simulated environment, and even a rank 5 spirit master would appear. And the little girl in front of him. Although the little girl in front of him did not have the slightest bit of profound energy fluctuation, senior brother Su Liang would no longer view her as an ordinary little girl without any cultivation. Reality proved that this little girl's cultivation was extremely high. She probably used some kind of magic treasure to conceal her aura. She was a girl who kept a low profile. Arbor swung the huge club in his hand and smashed it at the soldier's head. Chapter 1602. The soldier swung his heavy iron hammer to block. With a loud clang, the club and iron hammer collided, producing a heavy sound of friction. Arbor's figure didn't move at all, but that soldier's body swayed. This caused Uxian and He Wei, who were outside the barrier, to be stunned. How was this possible? The soldier in front of them was already a level 15 mystic cultivator, but he still wasn't Arbor's match. What exactly was so strange about this girl, Arbor? Why didn't she have any mystic energy fluctuations? Arbor naturally didn't know what the two girls were thinking. She was currently engaged in a hearty battle with the soldier. She moved and dodged as if she was teasing a kitten or a puppy, toying with the soldier. After several dozen moves, Arbor felt that she had fought enough. It was time to make this soldier formed from spirit energy disappear. The club in her hand emitted a golden light, and mystic energy converged into a straight line that pounced at the soldier's head. The sharp blade drawn from mystic energy shot straight into the soldier's mind, instantly disintegrating him. The armor on the soldier's body also completely melted, turning into wisps of spirit energy that blended into the surrounding environment. After finishing off the second soldier formed from spirit energy, Arbor started to gain experience and knew how to find opponents to fight next. As long as she completed 5 battles, she would be transported out, so she had to end the battle quickly. The people outside the shield watched with numb expressions. When the little girl was fighting with the Iron Hammer soldier earlier, her attitude was slightly more serious. But now that she was fighting with a level 1 spirit beast, the little girl was no longer serious at all. She finished off a spirit beast in 2 moves. Then, she went to find a 4th spirit beast. This time, the 4th spirit beast had already reached level 3, but it still couldn't last 3 moves in Arbor's hands before turning into spirit energy and dissipating in the simulated environment. Everyone was no longer shocked. Instead, they looked numbly at the little girl inside the barrier as she wandered around and continued to choose her 5th opponent. This time, another person appeared in front of him. Moreover, it was an opponent who could control the water spirit. The other party's water spirit had already begun to take shape. Xiao Mu looked at the strand of water spirit energy shuttling back and forth between his fingers and creased her brows. She raised her small hand, and 5 streams of water weaved between her fingers like spirit snakes. Arbor coldly looked at the water spiritualist, a trace of seriousness appearing in his eyes. Senior brother Su Liang and the others all noticed that the little girl seemed to only reveal a trace of seriousness when she was fighting with others. A long sword materialized in the other party's water spiritual teacher's hand, and he pounced at Xiao Mu without any explanation. Arbor sneered. With a flip of her right hand, a black ferrule fell into her palm. The golden club in his hand was withdrawn, and a line of fire shot out from the ferrule, directly into the hands of the opposing water spiritualist. After a light, chi sound, a trace of fire on the ferrule was extinguished by the opponent's water spirit energy. Arbor blinked and looked at the water spirit sword in the opponent's hand. With a swipe of her small hand, a water spirit sword appeared. The ferrule in his left hand and the sword in his right hand pierced through the water spiritualist's opponent. A faint light burst out from the water spiritualist's body. He originally wanted to quickly retreat and dodge, but he didn't expect the little girl to be someone who didn't play by the rules. Chapter 1603. Look at her left and right hands, they're both weapons, right? Actually, they're just a cover. If you think she'll use her left and right hands to attack you, then you'll be tricked right in front of you. Arbor summoned a startled swan dagger from his conscious at the last moment. The two were telepathic, and the startled swan dagger shot toward the water spirit master with a whoosh at lightning speed, instantly slicing open that person's throat. Thus, the water spirit master formed by spiritual energy turned into a faint wisp of smoke and dissipated in front of Arbor. A light flashed, and the little stoic came out of the barrier with a cold expression, standing expressionlessly in front of everyone. Yu Xian and He Wei looked at each other in dismay. No matter how unwilling they were, they had to admit that this little stoic directly passed the second test and became a student of Sunlight Academy. Congratulations, little miss. Su Liang appeared very happy, and he stood up and nodded at Arbor. You're now a member of our Sunlight Academy. As soon as he finished speaking, a strong light exploded from the little miss's body, connecting heaven and earth, drawing in spiritual energy from all directions. That scrambling speed made it seem like the spiritual energy had 5 senses, as if they were afraid that they wouldn't be able to find her if they were half a beat slower. What? Uxin and Hiwei stood there dumbfounded as they watched the scene before them. This is advancement. Miss Qiao advanced, Miss Qiao really advanced. This time, she truly advanced through battle with the assistance of the Xuanji Core. A level 15 entry-level mystic cultivator could communicate with heaven and earth and draw in spiritual energy into the body. This little fellow was already a quasi-spiritual cultivator. On the side, Qi Xuanxuan's jaw had already dropped to the ground from shock. She reached out a small hand and hastily propped up her chin. Qi Xianxian blinked and suddenly jumped to Arbor's side. She hooked her arm and exclaimed crisply, "Heavens, Jojo, you actually advanced after fighting a few battles." As expected, Shantian Prefecture is rich in energy and can help with advancement. Yes. Arbor's mind was no longer here, but he was shocked by the sudden opening of the inner world in front of him. When she glanced over, she found that her inner world, which was originally 180 cubic meters, had increased by quite a bit. Now, it was probably 500 cubic meters. Some of the mist-shrouded areas in his inner world were revealed, revealing even more. Gold, silver, and jewelry. Oh my God! Did she rob the palace's treasury in her dreams? Arbor's eyes were fixed on the boxes of gold bars. He closed his eyes and opened them again. There were rows of 3-story tall stone statues in the inner world. Looking at them now, there were definitely more than 800 pairs. There should be at least 3,000 statues. Could it be that there was actually gold hidden inside these stone statues? Arbor couldn't help but suspect that he might be a legendary treasure thief. Perhaps she had buried all kinds of gold, silver, and jewels in the stone statues. Otherwise, why would she place so many stone statues that could only be looked at but not eaten in her inner world? Don't you think it takes up a lot of space? Although the inner world was already 500 cubic meters, more than half of the space was almost filled by these stone statues. The outline of the snake statue behind the stone statue was gradually becoming clearer. It looked like it was roaring at the sky, and there were 2 small bulges on its head. Although it looked like a snake, the more he looked at it, the weirder it felt. Chapter 1604. Jojo. Qi Xianxian saw that she was in a daze and couldn't help but tug at her gently. Arbor withdrew her spiritual awareness from her inner world and watched as the door to her inner world closed. Only then did she regain her senses. She turned to look at Qi Xianxian and nodded slightly. "I'm fine." However, with her current situation, she still needed a relatively quiet environment to advance. It wasn't suitable for her to stay here any longer. Seeing that Arbor was about to turn and leave, Su Liang hurriedly ran forward and cupped his hands towards Arbor. "Junior sister, you have passed our Sunlight Academy's assessment. Please come over here to register." Arbor glanced coldly at the person who spoke and shook her head. "I'm sorry, I'm in a hurry to go back and prepare for my advancement. I don't have time to register." Senior brother Su hurriedly stopped her and smiled. "Oh, it's fine, it's fine. Junior sister, you only need to leave your name with me. We'll help you get an academy card. It won't take long, just a few minutes." Arbor glanced at him indifferently and her lips curled into a mocking smile. "Perhaps I didn't make myself clear enough. I won't join your academy." With that, she started to walk away. On the side, Qi Xianxian also harumphed coldly and followed after Qiao Mu without another word. "Wait." Senior brother Su Liang was startled, and even his voice became louder. "Young friend, please wait." A slightly old voice came from outside the crowd. In the blink of an eye, an elderly man with white hair and a white beard rushed over at lightning speed. He carefully examined Xiao Mu before nodding slightly and saying, "This young friend, you were a student from our academy just now and didn't know your limits. Sorry for offending you. Master." Su Liang hurriedly stood up and bowed towards the old man. Su Liang saw that the situation wasn't good and guessed that he wouldn't be able to keep Arbor. He hurriedly sent a message to his master so that the old man could rush over. Elder Su. All the disciples bowed towards the old man. This Elder Su was the honorary dean of Sunlight Academy and was an outstanding pill refiner. Thus, even Lord Dean himself had a very respectful attitude toward that old man. As Dean Yu's daughter, Uxian was well aware of this. She didn't dare to offend the old man. Seeing Elder Su appear, Uxian and Hiwei knew that the situation was not good. Sure enough, Elder Su turned his head and glared at Uxian and Hiwei. Then, he turned to Arbor and smiled kindly. Little girl, as long as you join our Sunlight Academy, this old man can make the decision to waive your tuition for 3 years. Also, this old man can vouch for you and recommend you to participate in the 6 Prefectures Academy's Powerhouse Ranking Competition in November this year. Wow! Everyone was listening attentively. After hearing the elder's promise, they all exclaimed. Elder Su actually vouched for a new student, promising to send her to the 6 Prefectures School Tournament in November this year. One had to know that the 6 Prefectures Academy Tournament was held once every 3 years. It was a tournament between all the academies in the 6 Prefectures continent. Everyone in the 6 Prefectures was watching this grand occasion. It also involved the allocation of resources on Brinset Island for the next 3 years. Brinset Island was a place that the 6 Prefectures would fight over. The island was as big as half of Shantian Prefecture. There were rich mineral and medicinal resources on the island. Chapter 1605. It was even one of the rare spirit lands in the 6 Prefectures continent. There were a total of 3 spirit lands that had been excavated on Brinset Island. They were currently owned by the schools that ranked first in the Academy League 3 years ago. They were Sunlight Academy of Shantian Prefecture, Auspicious Academy of Ani Prefecture, and Heaven Bestowing Academy of Poland Prefecture. One could imagine how important the Triennial Academy League was to the entire 6 Prefectures continent, and how important it was to every student. And now, Elder Su was actually sponsoring a new student to participate in it. Why did Elder Su trust this new girl so much? This showed that he was very confident in the girl's strength. Uxian's lips moved. Elder. Shut up. Elder Su glanced coldly at Uxian again. This Uxian, relying on the fact that she was the daughter of Sunlight Academy's headmaster Yu, was getting more and more unreliable. She actually didn't want to accept such a talent into Sunlight Academy, but kept pushing her away. The selfishness involved in this went without saying. Everyone present couldn't help but look at each other. Although they believed in Elder Su's eyes, it was obvious that the girl was really young. Although her cultivation was about to break through to the spirit realm, there were plenty of spirit realm experts in the Academy League. The little girl had the advantage of her age. Among this group of people with mediocre aptitudes, she naturally appeared to be talented and intelligent. Her talent was even more prominent. But the 6 Prefectures Academy League in November was a competition between spirit realm experts. The average age of the participants was around 20 years old, and the participants were all seniors of at least 5 years. The girl might not be able to stand out among these seniors with great talent and rich battle experience. Moreover, others wouldn't show mercy to you just because you were young, okay? This involved the interests of the various schools, so naturally they would fight with their lives on the line. The 2 girls who had just arrived at Shantian Prefecture had never heard of the Academy League. The 2 newbies looked at each other, and then turned to look at Elder Su. Sorry, I've already decided. Arbor said indifferently. Elder Su couldn't help but feel anxious. Little girl, you might not know what it means to participate in the Academy League. Every student who participates in the Academy League will have the right to cultivate in a spirit realm on Brinset Island for 15 days. If you can get into the top 100 in the league ranking competition, you will be rewarded handsomely. Of course, the higher your ranking, the more valuable the reward. You can consider it. Just the right to cultivate in Spirit Realm for 15 days was enough to drive everyone crazy. Even if you were only a substitute for the school tournament, when you set foot on Brinset Island, it meant that you had obtained the right to cultivate in the spirit domain for 15 days. This was really tempting. Many people looked at Arbor enviously. It was said that the experience of cultivating in Spirit Realm was completely different from normal cultivation. For those who had just entered Spirit Realm, after 10 days of cultivation, their cultivation would increase by a small step. Normally, this small step would take at least half a year for a cultivator of the Spirit Realm to complete. Little girl, what are you hesitating for? Quickly agree to Elder Su's request. Several disciples from the Sunlight Academy hurriedly said. To be able to obtain the qualifications to participate in the tournament as soon as he entered the academy, where else could he find such a wonderful thing? Chapter 1606. Moreover, Elder Su had promised to waive her 3 years of tuition fees. If it were anyone else present, they would have agreed to it 800 years ago. However, Arbor was unwilling. Her disdainful gaze shifted between Wuxia and Hiwei as she said bluntly, "Your academy's environment is too bad. I don't want to meet retards the moment I leave the academy." Qi Xianxian suppressed her laughter and nodded seriously. That's right. We don't want to be chased and bitten by a mad dog every day. Who are you calling a mad dog? Wuxian's expression instantly darkened. Her eyes were filled with anger, and her expression looked like she wanted to eat Qi Xianxian. Qi Xianxian made a face at her and giggled. Whoever responds will be the one. You. Wuxian was unable to restrain her anger. Shut up. Elder Su glared at Wuxian, who suddenly jumped out to interrupt them, and his eyes were filled with displeasure. Wuxian, I will truthfully report your actions today to Dean Yu. Wuxian couldn't help but panic when she heard that. She hurriedly said, Elder Su, let me explain. Elder Su snorted coldly. No need. No need to explain. This old man knows exactly what you're thinking. However, Arbor wasn't in the mood to continue watching the Sunlight Academy's elder and Wuxian quarrel. She turned and left with Qi Xianxian. When Elder Su saw this, his intestines turned green with regret. He regretted coming too late and not stopping Wuxian from making things difficult for Arbor at the first moment. However, it was too late for regrets now. Elder Su sighed. The academy missed out on such a young prodigy today. It's hard to say whether it will be good or bad if we meet again in the future. If such a young prodigy goes to the other 5 prefectures' academies, then it's hard to say whether our Shuntian Prefecture's Sunlight Academy can successfully obtain first place in this November's school league. Wuxian glanced at Elder Su in amusement. Elder, aren't you overestimating this little girl? Although she is very powerful, but she is also very strong. Although she is very powerful, she might not be a match for the other 5 prefectures. After all, she is merely a mystic cultivator who hasn't even reached rank 15. And in the school league, rank 5 and rank 6 spirit masters are practically everywhere. Short-sighted. Elder Su angrily rebuked and coldly swept a glance at Wuxian. How can a person's actual combat ability be judged purely by their cultivation? It's not like you didn't see how the little girl performed in the highest level of simulation just now. She's a level 15 mystic cultivator who hasn't even reached level 15 yet. Do you think it'll be very difficult for her to deal with a level 3 spirit beast? Seeing Elder Su's hair standing on end, it seemed like he was truly enraged. Wuxian couldn't help but shudder. She was really surprised. Elder Su and Arbor had only met for the first time. Why did he have so much confidence in her? Just because the girl's performance in the simulated environment was somewhat unexpected? However, this shouldn't be a big deal. After all, in a simulated environment, the opponents formed by spirit energy were all illusory. Compared to a level 3 or level 5 spirit master who fought with a real body, their actual combat strength was completely different. Moreover, she was just a weak girl who had just come up from the lower star field. Could she really change the structure of the 6 prefectures school league? Ha! She didn't believe it. Even if she was beaten to death, she wouldn't believe that such a thing would happen. How could it possibly happen? Looking at Elder Su's departing figure, Wuxia couldn't help but feel a bit of a headache. Chapter 1607. The most important thing now was to think of a good reason and excuse to explain to his father. Elder Su was a difficult person to communicate with. If he had made up his mind to report to his father, he would definitely do as he said. He Wei walked up from the side and snorted. It's just passing the second test. What's so great about that? When we entered the academy, didn't we all pass the second test too? Elder Su, I think you're overestimating her cultivation base. Wuxia glanced at her indifferently. She thought about how this woman had whispered into her ear and added fuel to the fire. That was why she couldn't hold back her anger. She felt that she was being used by this woman. He Wei said that Arbor's little girl was favored by Senior Su. Naturally, she was very angry. If it were not for this woman sowing discord, perhaps she simply would not have paid attention to an insignificant character from the lower star domain like Xiao Mu. Naturally, she wouldn't offend Elder Su. Now that she saw Elder Su's disgust towards her, Wuxia couldn't help but worry. After all, Elder Su was someone who had a lot of face in front of her father. Furthermore, the pills he made were also very good. Thinking of this, Wuxia quickened her steps. She wanted to find her father to discuss how she could redeem Elder Su's friendliness towards her. On the other hand, Arbor and Qi Xianxian returned to the small inn. They left early in the morning and only came back now. However, to the two of them, it was purely a waste of time. They arrived at the Sunlight Academy for half a day and didn't even register. Instead, they were nagged by a woman. Thinking of this, Qi Xianxian felt uncomfortable all over. Arbor tugged at Qi Xianxian and said, "I'll leave for a while. You rest first." Then, he threw her a small bag of spirit coins. "Don't worry about saving money for me. Go buy whatever you want to eat. Don't treat yourself too badly." After saying this, she had already disappeared from the room. Qi Xianxian paced around the room curiously, only to discover that Xiao Mu really had disappeared without a trace. Even her aura had completely disappeared from the world. Qi Xianxian wasn't too nervous. Since Arbor had already informed her in advance that he would be leaving for a while, then he should be looking for a relatively secluded and quiet place to cultivate and advance. However, this little Jojo really had a lot of secrets. Could it be that she was carrying a mystic domain-type artifact with her? Qi Xianxian shook her head and didn't probe any further. She took the small spirit pouch that Arbor gave her and happily walked downstairs. As soon as Arbor entered Paradise Planet, he was enveloped by the profound energy that surged from all directions. He didn't have time to think about it. His entire body had already sunk into a meditative state of calmness and concentration. Profound energy floated around her body, enveloping her layer by layer, forming a huge transparent cocoon. The little water baby rolled to her feet and swayed its watery head from side to side. It turned around and asked Little Tree, who was waving its branches as it ran over. "Qiu, how long is Master going to be in seclusion?" "At least 3 days, at most 5 to 7 days. This time, Master had directly advanced from level 14 advanced stage to level 15 elementary stage. She had skipped a small realm in between, so naturally, her advancement wouldn't be too fast. Chapter 1608. Qi Xianxian waited in the small inn for a full 4 days. On this day, she was eating breakfast listlessly in her room when she suddenly felt the air fluctuate. She immediately turned around and widened her eyes in excitement. Sure enough, she saw a slender figure appear in the torn air in front of her. Jojo. Qi Xianxian happily skipped over. Just as she was about to reach out to hug her, she suddenly stopped in her tracks. A pair of big round eyes sized her up from head to toe. Qi Xianxian suddenly exclaimed, "Wow! I can feel that the aura you're releasing right now is much stronger than mine. What realm have you advanced to?" Initial success level, 15 Mystic Cultivator. Whoa, not only did you cross the threshold of level 15 Great Mystic Cultivator, you even directly skipped the entry realm and entered the initial success realm. Qi Xianxian had a worshipful expression as she carefully sized up Arbor. Jojo, it must have been hard on you these past few days, right? In order to advance, you couldn't eat or sleep well. You must have been hungry for a few days. Come, I just asked someone to send up some hot porridge. Let's eat together. Arbor had a, "Thank you, but I'm not a foodie," expression on his face. He was speechless as Qi Xianxian pulled him to the small table and pressed him down. The two of them each held up a small porcelain bowl. Qi Xianxian ate 2 mouthfuls and couldn't help but ask, "Jojo, where do you think we should go next? Do you want to continue looking for that senior brother Situ of yours?" Arbor shook his head. "Let's not. Senior brother and the others should have also encountered their own fateful encounters. With their cultivation, there was no need to be too worried. In any case, there would be a chance to meet them in the future." Arbor decided to put aside the matter of looking for Situ E and the others and let nature take its course. "That's good. After careful consideration these past few days, I feel that the two of us should still find an academy to stay in. At the very least, we can study systematically. For example, I might be able to advance to the spirit realm after studying in the academy. For example, you can learn how to better control and use spirit energy in advance." Arbor drank a mouthful of porridge and nodded his small head in agreement. Always floating around Shuntian Prefecture like this was not a good idea. As for people, they still had to find an organization. "After thinking about it for 4 days and 4 nights, I've finally come to a decision. I think we should just go to a top academy." Arbor spat out a mouthful of hot porridge. In the blink of an eye, Qi Xianxian held a plate in front of her face and completely blocked Jojo's spit. "Jojo!" Qi Xianxian shouted angrily. "What kind of reaction is that?" Adhering to the principle of never admitting to doing bad things, Arbor slowly wiped her mouth with a handkerchief and said calmly, "It's okay. Go on." "Humph." Qi Xianxian stood up and clasped her hands behind her back as she recounted the benefits of going to a top-notch academy. That day, the tutor from the top-notch academy also said. There were mentors from the 5 spiritual faculties in the academy who specialized in one-on-one tutoring. "Let me think, this treatment should be pretty good." Arbor's mouth twitched. "That's right, it's the tutoring of outstanding instructors like Zhou Danjin." Qi Xianxian blinked and coughed lightly. I've been wandering around the city these past 2 days because I wanted to find a good academy for the two of us to stay in. But I don't know why, ever since I got into trouble with the Sunlight Academy, I've never been able to find a good academy. Whenever I went to the registration area of the other academies and said that I wanted to register, I would be rejected. Chapter 1609. Upon hearing this, Arbor's brows creased slightly. "How many academies' registration points did you go to these past few days?" "At least 7 or 8. Qi Xianxian waved her small hand and puffed out her cheeks as she said angrily, "The teachers at the registration points looked at me like I was the god of plague, and they repeatedly waved their hands to tell me to leave. I didn't even have time to say a word at some of the registration points. They just told me to scram." When she said this, Qi Xianxian pouted like a little toad and stomped her feet in anger. Arbor involuntarily snorted. Of course it's because our portraits have already been distributed to every academy in Shuntian Prefecture, clearly stating that they're targeting us and won't let us enter. Unless we leave Shuntian Prefecture and go to Ani Prefecture or Luotian Prefecture. Otherwise, we might not be able to find a single academy in Shuntian Prefecture that has the guts to take us in. What? Qi Xianxian wasn't stupid and immediately understood after a moment's thought. Those two damn bitches from Sunlight Academy are framing us. It should be pretty close. I just don't get it. It's only our first time meeting those two bitches, so why are they targeting us? It's probably because they don't like me, Arbor said aloofly. And you were merely implicated because of me. Sorry. Qi Xianxian immediately punched her shoulder. What are you apologizing for? Good sisters should endure hardships and enjoy blessings together. Arbor's brows relaxed slightly. Qi Xianxian smacked the table in a very domineering manner, causing the empty bowl on the table to jump out. Then it's decided. We'll go to a top-notch academy. I don't believe that a top-notch academy won't take us in. According to Instructor Zhou's words, the top-notch academy seems to be located in the lava mountain range outside Anka City. Pack your things, we're setting off now. Qi Xianxian was full of fighting spirit as soon as she said it. The little stoic couldn't help but be infected by this exuberant girl. She wordlessly followed behind her and symbolically packed her tattered bag. Yes, it was just an indigo-colored ragged bag with 2 sets of old clothes and a few white buns inside. It was just for show. Qi Xianxian angrily put all the pots and pans in the room into a bag. As she tidied up the bag, she said, "Let me tell you, Jojo is a top academy. Who knows, it might be a good choice." Arbor silently followed behind her. He pulled out a crumpled letter from his chest and glanced at it. Could it be that everything was predestined? Forget it. Since it was Murong Sun who wanted her to go to a top-notch academy, then she would give it a try. Master couldn't harm her. Let's go. Qi Xianxian flung the bag over her shoulder and roared with her fist raised. Arbor followed up weakly, Xianxian, why did you take the inn owner's pots and pans? What about taking them all away? You only had them deliver a pot of porridge, but you actually confiscated their pots and pans before you left. Aren't you a bit too stingy? Qi Xianxian was startled. She turned her head and chuckled mischievously at her. Let's go. Perhaps Xianxian was right. A top-notch academy might really be a good choice. However, Arbor didn't know that she freaking regretted it 3 days later. If she had to use 2 words to describe a top-notch academy's characteristics, then it would definitely be cheating. Chapter 1610. According to the map, the lava mountain range was indeed outside Anka City. However, the 2 idiots with no sense of direction had wandered around the mountain for 2 days and 2 nights, but they still could not find the place. The 2 of them looked at each other in dismay. Could it be that the cheap map you bought was wrong? Arbor looked at Qi Xianxian helplessly and asked. How is it cheap? I spent a spirit coin to buy it. Qi Xianxian mumbled, then turned the map upside down and glanced at it. Wait, this red river can't be the lava mountain range, right? Arbor leaned over to take a look and saw that there was indeed a red river on the opposite side of the mountain. There was also a little red dot behind the river. Yes, it was that little red dot. A little red dot that you would not notice on the map. This could be the real lava mountain range. Therefore, the 2 of them went in the opposite direction and spent 2 days in an unknown mountain range. Heavens! How can there be such a lousy map? What kind of map is this? Qi Xianxian was so angry that she almost tore the map apart. Arbor quickly stopped her and coughed lightly. It's our fault for not looking carefully. It's alright, the day after tomorrow is the 28th of July for the entrance exam. We, should be just in time. My heavens, the people who sell maps in Shantian Prefecture are all idiots. The real lava mountain range is marked so small, and a lousy mountain is outlined in black. The next time I see that profiteer selling maps, I'll beat him to death. Qi Xian gritted her teeth as she recalled the appearance of the profiteer. That fellow was wearing a black cloak and a hat. Looking at him now, it was obvious that he was not a good person. Fuck, she actually fell for this kind of person's trick. What a waste of that spirit coin. Arbor was speechless. Hey, the two little sisters in front. Please wait, please wait. A panting sound came from behind the two of them. Little sisters, I want to ask for directions. The little fatty ran over. He was as round as a ball, and his small eyes were curved like crescent moons. Who are you? Qi Xian looked like she was ready to beat someone up, and stared at little fatty with vigilance. What a joke. The two of them had wandered around the mountain for 2 days, but they hadn't seen a single living person. Instead, they had seen 2 or 3 corpse puppets that were dead but not yet dead. They had easily dealt with them. Don't hit. Little fatty hurriedly waved his 2 hands in front of himself and shook his head. I'm a good person. My name is Ko Hongwen. Ko Hongwen. Qi Xian lowered her hand and looked at him suspiciously. What are you doing here? I am a little lost. I want to ask the 2 ladies how to get to the top academy. You also want to go to the elite academy? Qi Xian and Arbor asked in unison. Little fatty was instantly excited. His small eyes blinked as he looked at the 2 of them. He laughed and said, "Io, could it be that the 2 ladies are also going to the elite academy?" After saying that, he took out a crumpled and yellowed piece of paper from his pocket and spread it out in front of the 2 of them. Look at this map, it's clearly marked with a black and thick line. But no matter where I look, I can't find the elite academy. Isn't it a little strange? The 2 ladies rolled their eyes at the same time. You're tuning into the Han Li's Wuxia Adventures YouTube channel. We're so grateful for your support, and don't forget to subscribe to join us on this incredible journey through captivating stories. Your generosity through donations truly makes a world of difference, as it's the primary source of revenue that allows me to expand and enhance this channel for you. Thank you from the bottom of my heart for being a part of this adventure.